Hello and welcome to the Eureka City Council meeting today, January 17th. We're glad you're all here. I'd like to open this meeting. First with the land acknowledgement. The land that Eureka rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Jirajiji. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments remove the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threaten to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Eureka acknowledged the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates the city's commitment to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. And now, if folks would, roll call, please.
Mayor Burgell.
Here.
Councilmember Castellano.
Here.
Councilmember Moulton.
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Bauer.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras de Loche.
Here.
Great. And would all who care to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So in mayor's announcements, I have a few announcements, but we'll begin with our first proclamation of the evening. And if you ladies would like to come forward. And this is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Thank you for being here. And Councilmember Moulton has that proclamation.
It would be my honor, Mayor. Thank you. Welcome. The City of Eureka Proclamation, Human Trafficking in Recognition of Human Trafficking Awareness Month, January 2023. Whereas the United States was founded upon the principle that all people are created with the inalienable right of freedom, and added the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, making slavery illegal. And whereas slavery within the United States today is most often found in the form of human trafficking, which weakens our social fabric, increases violence and organized crime, and debases our humanity. And whereas victims of human trafficking are typically forced to work in various forms of labor exploitation, including but not limited to commercial sex acts, drug processing and distribution, and other services induced through force, fraud, or coercion. And whereas, due to its isolating nature, many individuals locally and across the globe are unaware that trafficking exists in Humboldt County and neighboring counties. And whereas it is estimated that more than 20 million men, women, and children around the world are victims of human trafficking. And whereas Seroptimus International of Humboldt Bay and Eureka are working to abolish human trafficking through education, advocacy, and collaboration. Now, therefore, I, Katie Moulton, on behalf of Mayor Kim Burgell and the Eureka City Council, do hereby call upon the citizens of Eureka to recognize the vital role they can play in ending all forms of slavery and to support the Seroptimus International Clubs of Humboldt County as they raise awareness through education and other efforts to stop human trafficking.
Thank you. Katrina, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I am standing instead of Seroptimus, but I am the awareness director for EPI. It stands for Empower, Protect, and Invest. It's a local organization here, and I am grateful to collaborate with Seroptimus and the City of Eureka to be able to bring attention to this. I think the one thing that I would like to leave with you is I'd like to ask a question, and that is, what did you want to be when you were 5 years old? Anybody?
Honestly, I wanted to be a firefighter.
Okay. Anybody else want to answer?
Musician on Lawrence Welk.
Okay.
That dates me.
Artist, ballerina, astronaut.
Okay. Anybody else?
Teacher.
All right. Would anybody in the audience like to answer? What did you want to be when you were 5 years old?
Okay.
Okay. I didn't hear one single person say, when I grow up, I want to be a prostitute. And so if we could change our verbiage, those are not prostitutes that you see out there. It's not what they are, but who they are. What is happening to them. And so those are prostituted individuals. And somewhere along the way, force, fraud, or coercion happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Thanks so much. Okay, now we're going to have a presentation on the Home for the Holidays Awards.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Sarah West with the Economic Development Team, and tonight I'm here to discuss and present the Home for the Holidays 2022 Decorating Contest Awards. A little bit of background if you're not familiar with the contest. This year in December was the third annual contest brought to you by the Economic Development Team in partnership with Mayor Burgell. The contest is open to residents of the greater Eureka area, and we invite participants to decorate their houses on the exterior and to celebrate any holiday they wish in December. So this year, we opened up the contest in early December. Once we had signups done, we released our list to the public and invited community members to be able to drive around and bring their family and view the different homes that are decorated. We also had an online voting mechanism where anybody could go and vote for their favorite house. And our awards were structured so that there was a first place and a second place done by popular vote. And then we had a Mayor's Choice Award, which was chosen by Mayor Burgell. And with that, I'd like to invite Mayor Burgell down to come present the awards, and we'll show you our winning houses. I believe we have some of our winners in the audience tonight. Mayor's Choice Award was 1920 O Street, and Joy Lindholm. Is Joy Lindholm in the audience tonight? Congratulations, Joy. Our second place house was 3815 Pennsylvania Avenue, and that was Nick Smithler. Is Nick in the audience tonight? Congratulations, Nick. Oh, I forgot to mention, our awardees get to choose a gift certificate to a business of their choice. That's their prize along with a recognition award. And finally, our first place winner was not able to make it tonight, but is 3470 18th Street, and that is Kirk Radomski and family. And thank you to everyone who participated in the contest and all the folks who came out and viewed all the beautiful houses. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So I do have a few announcements, a few mayor announcements. First of all, I wanted to announce that we are still working on our mental health town halls. It looks like our dates are going to be the end of February, beginning of March. It'll be here at Council Chambers. There'll be more information. It's going to be kind of a mental health 101, the first meeting, and we really would encourage people to come and express your fears, your complaints, your solutions. We love those as well. So more information will be coming forward on that, and those will be happening quarterly. Very excited to see that coming forward. I also wanted to acknowledge that on the 29th is the Honoring Ford Hess 52nd Annual Trinidad Clam Beach Run. It's at 11:30 on the 29th. Great run, great community. If you get an opportunity, it's beautiful to run on the beach. I also attended a mass for Dave Silverbrand in honor of him, a great human being, and we'll be addressing that next month. But I just wanted to mention that that was a really beautiful and meaningful ceremony. And then lastly, I wanted to acknowledge, and actually I wanted to take a moment of silence for Justine Green. And you may have heard of Justine. She was the one that was found in the dumpster. Very unfortunate what happened there. And also to let you know that we do have shelters available. We have St. Vincent de Paul and the Rescue Mission. If you know someone in crisis, please call us or call someone, because this was really unnecessary and tragic. So if we could just have a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for honoring that she was a human being and taking that moment. Moving on, we're going to move on to presentations. And we have a tobacco retail licensing presentation. Will those folks come forward? Oh, and can we get a report out of closed session?
Mayor Burgell, I was just going to jump in here for the minute taker and say on the record there were nothing to report out of closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members, and thank you for your time tonight. You have a lot of detailed information in your packet about tonight's topic, so I encourage you to look through that and click on some of the links that are in there, additional information. My name is Jay McCubbery. I am project director with Tobacco Free North Coast. We are a grant-funded project through the California Department of Public Health, and we are here to assist communities to take back control over the health of their young people especially, and prevent addiction to nicotine. Tonight we're here to start the conversation about a local tobacco retail license. This is important because tobacco use remains the leading cause of preventable death. And there's currently no oversight on tobacco retailers in Humboldt County, no local oversight. Illegal sales of tobacco have been as high as 40% in Eureka. Recent young adult tobacco purchase surveys we conducted showed illegal sales of over 50% in unincorporated Humboldt County, over 30% in Fortuna, and over 45% in Arcata. Clearly, there's very little oversight. State and local tobacco laws rely on local monitoring and enforcement. That's why tobacco retail licensing, or TRL, is recommended by both the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and California Department of Public Health as a best practice to reduce access to tobacco and prevent addiction. TRL provides a self-sustaining structure to enforce local tobacco laws. In August, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved moving forward with the TRL policy. We expect that policy to be introduced in the coming month or so. Let's see. Okay, during that presentation in August, the board requested that other jurisdictions come on board and take a look at these policies so that we can have a level playing field and consistent regulations for businesses throughout Humboldt County. Tonight, we have with us a few folks who can provide more detail on this TRL policy and what it can do. I'm not sure if he's able to listen in tonight. Josh Sweet is a graduate of Eureka High School. He is currently taking a class at CR, so I'm not sure if he can make it, but if he's there, Josh, can you raise your hand and then stand by? We also have with us Amber Weir, who is project director of NorCal for Health. Amber produced a video that Josh is featured in, and that's linked in your package. I encourage you to watch it. It provides kind of a youth perspective on the vaping epidemic. Amber was also instrumental in the TRL policy that was recently adopted and implemented already by the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors. And then finally, Jay Macedo. Jay has been working in tobacco control a long time. He helped Sonoma County develop and implement their tobacco retail license policy. He's currently with a project from the Health and Social Policy Institute called Communities Addressing Nicotine. And Jay is also a consultant with several tribal tobacco control programs. So tonight, you kind of have the A-team standing here before you, and I hope you will take advantage of our services and support. Is Josh on the line? Do you see any hands raised? Okay, check out that video that he's in. It's really moving. Amber, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be quick. Like Jay said, my name's Amber Weir, Project Director for NorCal for Health, also here to offer technical support. But one of the areas that I just want to highlight for everyone, and I think you got it in your packet, and it's about product placement. And it's about the research that we know and tobacco companies know that kids who see it try it. And they are, I should have brought my glasses. 90% of smokers today started before they were 18, so we know it's a youth-initiated issue. Thank you, that's very kind. And we know that exposure to marketing more than doubles the odds that kids will use tobacco, and youth are more likely to be influenced by ads than by peer pressure. And youth are 3 times more sensitive to tobacco ads than adults. So with a tobacco retail license, there are options that you can look at to help reduce that exposure. And some of those things are like putting a cap on tobacco retail. How many retailers are there per population? Similar to what they do with the alcohol licenses. You can do that for tobacco retail. You can limit where they place their products near candy, and you'll see if you go in, a lot of times they're right at point of sales, and they're right at eye level for children at the countertops and near candy and sodas. And I'll tell a quick, I know I said I'd be quick, but I took a child into Walgreens. This was before I had this job, and he was huffing and puffing. We're in line. I'm like, "What's the matter?" And he's like, "Well, I just don't understand. Back here, they're trying to heal us, and up here, they're trying to kill us. I don't know what they want from us." I didn't even get it because I was an adult and I was so used to seeing it at the point of sales. But this 8-year-old boy was upset. And this was before I was in tobacco education and prevention. So it just goes to show that youth do see this and they're influenced by it. So limiting right by candy, sodas, and chips. So Del Norte County did pass that in their TRL. And then the other is storefront, limiting 10% of advertising in the storefront windows. That's also a safety issue, so people can see into the convenience stores. So Del Norte County also did that, or passed that policy. And then the other one is tobacco-free pharmacies. So that little story I told with the youth at a pharmacy and not understanding why. So those are just some of, and proximity to schools. That's my last one. I'll hand it off to Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jay Macedo with the Communities Addressing Nicotine, CAN. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the TA, technical assistance or TA we can provide, our 3 agencies could provide Humboldt County jurisdictions in the city of Eureka. Many California jurisdictions have adopted a robust local TRL, tobacco retail license. Research has shown that TRL policies have, on average, annual reduction in youth sales of 26%, with many communities exceeding 50 to 90% reductions. Local TRL fees should be high enough to support and sustain local administration and enforcement. The average TRL fee in California was $344 per year, with $475 being the most common fee. The model TRL policy that we have available to us through the Public Health Law Center, one of our TA providers that helps us with legal policies and assistance, provides many options for each community to determine the best enforcement protocols for their needs. As a state-funded TA provider, our 3 agencies can assist with drafting TRL policies, TRL fee calculations, as well as other administrative document assistance. We offer free compliance support to localities by educating retailers and the communities about the TRL and about the new statewide flavored tobacco ban. Our agencies can develop and purchase TRL signs, educational materials, provide merchant trainings, perform store visits, surveys, and assist with implementation such as license protocols, application examples, and compliance checks. We can work with local enforcement to conduct young adult tobacco purchase surveys, which Jay mentioned earlier that were conducted earlier this year, or last year rather, or assist with recruiting young adults for decoy operations to evaluate the TRL policy objective of reducing illegal tobacco sales to those under 21. Standardized local TRL policies across Humboldt County jurisdictions can help to ensure regular education, compliance, enforcement of federal, state, and local laws designed to protect youth from tobacco and create a level playing field for the retailers in Humboldt County jurisdictions. We respectfully invite council to direct staff to work with our projects and develop this policy for further consideration by the council. More details are in your packets on the TA we can provide and our contact information as well. And we look forward to meeting with council and staff for TA consultation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for our presenters? No? Councilmember Castellano? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. It's very informative. So we're going to move forward now to public comment. So before I do, I want to read a statement about public comment. So all persons in attendance at public meetings are requested to observe the following rules of civil debate. 1, we may disagree, but we will be respectful of one another. 2, comments will be directed to the issue at hand. 3, personal attacks are unacceptable. 4, applauding or other displays of approval or disapproval are discouraged. So public comment, this is the time for members of the public who wish to be heard on matters that do not appear on the agenda. City Council policy is to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. The public will be allowed to speak concurrently with the calling of an agenda item following the staff presentation of that item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. So do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Tiffany LaFoon. I would like to take another moment to acknowledge the death and the life of Justine Green. She was a really sweet elder woman. I've never heard a bad thing said about her. And even from her position of crisis and need, she did her best to help others who were living outdoors, as so many people living outdoors do. And what a horrible way to die. And no one should have to seek shelter from a storm in a dumpster. And she was not a stranger to the mission and its shelter. She would have gone there if she could have, I'm sure. The women's side of the shelter has been full for months. There are, I hear different reports of 15 to 25 beds available as emergency shelter at free meal, but that is such a tiny drop in the bucket. Our numbers of unhoused people living outdoors are growing every day, which means that the systems that we're using to address this problem are not working. And it's estimated amongst service providers at this point that the numbers of unhoused are probably over 3,000 people. And the most concentrated population of them are here in the city of Eureka. And I do sit on the executive committee of the Housing and Homeless Coalition. And even though we're having a lot more money come in lately to address homelessness, from what I see, the way it's being spent will mean that most people will never get help, which means they need to be able to help themselves. And in order to do that, they have to be able to stabilize. They have to have a place where they're allowed to be, where a community is allowed to form, because that's the only way that many people's needs are being met. In order to get supplies and to have someone watch their gear and their pets so that they can go to appointments and go shopping, they need to have their communities. And every time we sweep encampments, it's breaking up communities, and it's making it worse for both the housed and unhoused portions of the population. So please help put an end to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Joanne McGarry. I actually live in Arcata, but I come to the Eureka City Council meetings on occasions because things happen differently here. And one of them is the acknowledgement from the dais by the mayor about the death of a unhoused woman in your community. We had one on December 5th, a woman named Nancy Barnes, who died at the door of City Hall in Arcata. I'm normally a climate activist, and I still am. And what I've discovered in recent weeks, having been to Arcata City Hall right after Nancy was found dead that morning, and having been there the day before and seen her encampment, it was pretty traumatizing for me personally. And I recognize that we need to get a handle on this issue before we can ever solve the existential threat of the climate crisis. And I just, in my volunteering at the extreme weather shelter in Arcata a couple of weekends ago, discovered that, as the previous speaker said, there's a lot of need out there that is not being met, no matter how much money is being put into this county. And three of the things that really stood out to me were animals and veterans and immediate unhousing by family members whose other family member pushed them out of the house. These were some of the experiences I learned about in my extreme weather volunteering and a couple of weeks ago. We really need to have a much more holistic approach to this question, and regionally, and I am willing to be there and assist, especially with animal issues, because I worked for 16 and a half years at the San Francisco SPCA and have been a state humane officer as well. And, especially women, we really need to deal with the situations. 2 women now have died in our county, and you may have seen the video of the woman being hosed down in San Francisco. This is unacceptable. And so I am here to be with you and follow your lead in doing something much more successful in regards to all the unhoused people in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Is there anybody else in the audience here that would like to comment? Anyone on Zoom?
Ash.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, this is Ash with lostcoastpopulist.com. First off, I just wanted to comment that I heard that there was like a meeting between the Eureka City Council and Security National. I guess that's like a stockbroker company that wasn't like a public meeting. And I was wondering, I know you don't typically respond, but I was wondering what the nature of that meeting was. Also, I just wanted to applaud Miles Slattery for finally dropping the COVID vax mandate, as I hear. I mean, I'm kind of wondering why there wasn't a press release, being that the city's hiring for, multiple positions, and that will definitely draw some people in if you make it, just put it out there that it's no longer a criteria for what you're demanding of your employees. I'm just wondering what the reasoning was finally, because the reasoning given when I'd asked before was vague at best. So is there kind of some kind of pending litigation that spurred this, or did the public health department, did they finally just give the go ahead? I don't what. That'd be another one I'd be interested to hear about, though I know you typically do not respond to people in public comment. But that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. And Ash, you can always send an email to get those answers. Is there anyone else on public comment? No, seeing none, we'll bring it back to city business. To the consent calendar. All matters listed under this category are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. Pursuant to City Council Resolution 2011-22, if a member of the public would like an item on the consent calendar pulled and discussed separately, the request shall be made to a council member prior to the meeting. Unless a specific request is made by a council member, the consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items. And I'm not aware of anything being pulled. No? Okay. So can we get a motion then?
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent calendar as written.
A second.
Great, please vote. Oh, I don't vote. I'm still getting used to that.
Councilmember Castellano?
Aye.
Unanimous yes vote, motion carries.
Thank you. I'm still not used to not voting. Okay, so next is legislative action correspondence. Is there anything that we have that needs to be addressed? No? Okay, moving forward. Ordinances and resolutions, complete street resolution and policy. Could we have a report, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Oh.
Thanks for having us tonight. So I just want to say a few words about Complete Streets and then hand it over to the Transportation Safety Commission members that are here tonight that helped out with this policy. So what are Complete Streets? Complete streets are streets that are designed and operated to enable safe access for all people who need to use them, including pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit riders of all ages and abilities. So complete streets is not a new concept, and especially not new in the city. I don't see this policy as a change so much as a way to highlight what we currently do. So the city's incorporated complete streets elements into projects for many years. Projects such as the Waterfront Trail, Harris Street Bike Lane, citywide pedestrian improvements, bus stop improvements, the Waterfront Drive connection, and numerous upcoming projects have all included substantial complete streets elements. So this policy is important as it shows the city's commitment for safety of all modes of transportation. So with that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Transportation Safety Commission members, Caroline Griffith and Philip Beaudry, who were on the Complete Streets Subcommittee and helped move this forward in such a efficient and swift manner. So with that, I will hand it over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Oh, okay, that sounds good. Hi, my name is Philip Beaudry. I volunteer on Eureka's Traffic Safety Commission because I believe in creating safe, accessible streets for all members of our community. As a parent, I understand the importance of providing safe options for my child to walk, bike, and roll to school and around our neighborhood. I want to support my child's decision to forego driving and encourage active transportation for all residents. When I heard he didn't want to drive at all, I kind of snickered to myself and thought, but that's the price of entry to productive society. But hopefully it doesn't have to be. I'm honored to work with the commission, with city staff to develop policies like this and projects that prioritize safety and well-being of all roadway users,
promoting a more livable and sustainable community for all of us.
Hi, I'm Caroline Griffith. I've been on the Transportation Safety Commission since 2019, and I share Philip's desire to help create a transportation system that works for everybody and that is safe for all users. And I personally walk and bike around Eureka a lot, and I do it because it's fun, it's good for the planet, it's good for my health, but for the majority of the time that I've done it, it's also been for economic reasons. And so I'm also excited about Complete Streets as a way to make sure that everybody, regardless of how they get around or why they get around that way, is able to get where they're going safely. And so, yeah, we're here to talk about why we should enact a Complete Streets policy. And it is something that I push to bring forward at the TSC because, as Scott said, it really is formalizing a lot of the work that's already happening in the city of Eureka. As there's new funding for, I believe it's through Measure H or I can't remember, H. And as more streets are being repaired and maintained, there actually is a lot more of this work happening. So just to make sure that this is going forward, we're working to build a city that works for all of the transportation system that works for all of its users. And so adopting a Complete Streets policy is not only good for community safety, it's also one of the goals of the 2040 general plan that has been adopted. So by adopting a Complete Streets policy, we could be in compliance with that, and also committing to creating transportation infrastructure that makes it easier for people to choose non-motorized modes of transportation, can help us to meet some of the emissions reduction goals in the climate action plan as well. And then by doing this as a policy that covers the entire city, we make sure that it is equitably distributed. So regardless of what neighborhood you live in and what the income level is there, you are also able to benefit from sidewalks that connect to each other, bike lanes that go through, and so all modes of transportation are valued. And next slide, I'll pass it to Philip.
As we all know, traffic safety is a major concern in our community. With Complete Streets, we can reduce accidents and improve safety for all road users. We can also encourage active transportation like walking and cycling, which can have a positive impact on public health and help create a cleaner environment. Slide.
So it's not just about safety and the environment. It's also about building a better, more livable community. So Complete Streets can help to make our neighborhoods more pleasant places to live by reducing the noise from traffic and air pollution, and also making it easier for neighbors to interact with each other, which can increase social cohesion and just make for more livable neighborhoods. They also encourage people to walk and bike instead of drive, which can lead to less traffic congestion, which actually makes it nicer for the people who are driving as well. So here's a couple of examples of a more auto-centric street, and then one that is more complete, that has all of those different pedestrian crossings and pedestrian scale lighting, and just the infrastructure for folks to get around without cars. Next slide.
In addition, Complete Streets can have economic benefits. They can make it easier for customers to access local businesses, which can lead to increased economic activity and property values, and provide alternative mobility options for people who don't have access to a personal vehicle.
All right, next one. So we're proud to say that we developed this together on the Transportation Safety Commission, along with a lot of help from the city transportation engineer, Scott Elsmore. It's based somewhat on the policy that was recently passed by the city of Arcata, and also a policy from the Redwood Coalition for Climate and Environmental Responsibility. And Commissioner Beaudry and myself. And it was reviewed and discussed by the Transportation Safety Commission with supportive public comment, and then was subsequently voted to bring it forward to the City Council with no nays.
So at the end of the day, we have had in recent history, by my assessment anyway, a mayor, a council, a transportation engineer and special projects manager, city staff, and city manager that support these programs already. the incremental improvements are happening, and it allows us to learn as we go and get better each time. So I believe that codifying the path we're on now assures that we're going to reach the destination that we're already on. And I appreciate council and your pending deliberation. But I can't help but end with a bad haiku. Equitable streets, transportation safety now. Eureka thrives proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So bringing it back to council, do you have any questions? Councilmember Bauer?
I don't know if this is the appropriate spot, but I was thinking of talking about complete streets. I know we use a lot of, once we grind, we're using some of that material to put it back into base. But would this be a good place to talk about using more recycled aggregate, recycled asphalt versus virgin material we have to mine, just wondering.
It wouldn't prevent you from doing that. I think something along the lines of either the zero waste, action plan that we're putting together, I think would be a good spot for that as well. The problem that we've had is people here locally that produce the product. We obviously use grindings for patches and all of those things. Currently, right now, I don't believe we have 2 producers of asphalt concrete, and neither of them do a recycled version. So that's definitely something that we could look into as part of the zero waste action plan as part of that.
Okay, thank you.
You do. Councilmember, I was just going to say Deloche, Contreras Deloche. I'll learn those 2 names, I promise.
Yeah, I just had one question actually. So I in general, I see, the idea that cars should rule the road is kind of relatively new, and I think there needs to be, an ability for all kinds of transportation. But I did have one question on the myths page, or there was a list of myths, and I was just curious. One of the things that was listed was that most customers come by car from far distances. And I don't know if this is something we really know, but I'm curious, with downtown in particular being supported and to some degree, the businesses being patronized by tourism, and wondering how true that is for them, and how much of that might really be not necessarily as accurate for them. I'm not sure what portion of their revenue they receive by that, but that would be the only thing I would be wondering about. But
So the only data that we really have is from our marketing firm. When they come and they do a presentation, I know Councilmember Contreras Deloche, you haven't been a part of that, but they do an annual report, at least sometimes 2 times a year, and this reports about cell phone data and where that cell phone data comes from. It's typically only relative to out of the area folks, because they're trying to do some destination marketing type of work. But we could potentially look at that for local phone numbers as well. But as far as, survey data or anything like that, I don't believe we have anything from the businesses. I know that being a part of Main Street now, that there's a lot of their own opinion is that they definitely get a lot of vehicular traffic for their businesses in Old Town.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer?
Under H6, I see a lot of shalls, shall take certain trainings.
That is City Attorney Luna's favorite word.
I've given up.
No, and it's great. I mean, I think trainings are great. I just wonder, cost-wise.
I think that she has it saved on her Word document for find and replace shall with will.
No, just cost-wise, what do we think that would be? I mean, to me, shall, when I read a permit or a legal document, shall means you will do it. Now, how does that lock us into, cost of trainings and whatnot? I don't think it would be exorbitant. I'm just wondering, how does that affect the budget?
So I don't think it's going to be a significant impact on the budget in any way. I mean, it's always where practicable, so I mean, there's a lot of things where it is practicable, that's taken into consideration costs, as well as, the feasibility of doing it. So I'm amazed that it says shall so many times with Autumn's review.
I actually didn't review this.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. It doesn't even say so on reviewed and approved. But if you want to change it to
no, I
where
don't.
practicable, I'm all for that.
It was more just a question of what the impact on the budget is more than the shall.
Yeah, no, I think that the representatives of the Traffic and Safety Commission said it very well. I think that, with the funding that we have from Measure H, it allows for a lot of these things, and the differences, not to bring up this again, but the couplet at Dolby and W, the costs for that were insignificant for making the difference there, and that's typically what the case will be.
Great. I think Councilmember Castellano, did you have a question?
Thanks. I don't have any questions right now. I'll
Okay.
Things after public comment.
Just wanted to check in with you. Councilmember Fernandez.
Yeah, so I see throughout this document it refers to the complete and green streets policy, and so going back to Councilmember Bauer's concerns about the recyclability and our implementation of those green policies, what do we see throughout this in terms of green?
So yeah, there was some correspondence related to this. We received some correspondence from Keep Eureka Beautiful that were interested in more the landscaping aspects associated with traffic calming and those type of things, and felt that could be incorporated more into this. If that's what council wishes, we can definitely make those changes as well.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it to open up the public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? I see 2 on Zoom. Is there anybody in the house, in the chambers? All right.
Colin Fisk.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Colin Fisk. I'm the Executive Director of CRTP, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. I wanted to first of all thank both staff and the Transportation Safety Commissioners for their work on this policy. I think it's really great policy, and also thank staff and the council for your work on all of the safety projects and bike and pedestrian projects that are already under development or have been recently completed. I do think that in addition to sort of formalizing an existing commitment of the city to safety for all users, this policy will make a significant difference in promoting those projects. And it does that basically by making inclusion of these kinds of additional facilities for all users automatic wherever they're feasible and relevant. And so, just for one example, as the city goes through and, does its repaving work and its restriping work, it's kind of the standard maintenance work. This will allow the city to include things like bike lanes and crosswalks and other sort of low-cost improvements in all of those projects without having to go through a broader process. And so hopefully it'll accelerate the network of safe and comfortable and low-stress facilities for people to get around the city using those modes of transportation. In any case, we strongly support this and would encourage you to adopt it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Phone number ending in 9334.
Hello?
Hi there, we can hear you.
Oh, very good. This is Dennis Mayo calling. How are you guys? So 2 quick housekeeping deals I wanted to point out before my comment. The access phone number is not shown. You show it in the beginning, but then it's not up the rest of the night. I know many other places have that access number. I would suggest that you consider rerunning that access number throughout your meeting. I think it'd be helpful to the public. Second of all, another housekeeping thing, and I know you said it was a suggestion, but unfortunately, one of the things when we are elected is we don't get to tell people they can't chew us out or harass us or say horrible things. They can't threaten violence. So I just point that out. I have to go through this at our meetings, and we get talked to horribly at times. But just a point of order, that is free speech, and we have to support that.
Thank you. That was a suggestion, Dennis.
No, I know. I mentioned that right off the bat that it was a suggestion, but I think that suggestion is good to help set the tone. So on this policy, making streets safe is laudable, and but also to make sure that our traffic flow, the flow is incredibly important. Walking and biking are a minority of our traveling public and will continue to be. So our current little flash of old-time Humboldt weather give us a little idea of how these all need to work together. I was happy to see in the document the mention finally of multimodal transportation. When Richard Pombo, Congressman, was the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, I was appointed to the National Trail Trust, where we helped develop protocols for multimodal trail use and roadway connectivity. And that's what I wanted to bring up to you guys tonight. It gets left out always. Horseback riding and carriage driving is something that we do and is important to us. And I know municipalities have limited that to a great deal in most of the main thoroughfares. But as we have trails, our trails have horseback riding and carriages, and I would like you to take a better look at your connectivity where the trails intersect city streets and that concept.
Thank you, Mr.
Anyway,
Mayo. We appreciate you being here. Your time's up.
Brett Gronmeyer.
Gronemeyer? Yes, thank you. My name is Brett Gronemeyer. I'm a resident of the city and the vice president of the Humboldt Bay Bicycle Commuters Association. And I wanted to express that my support and the association's support of the Complete Streets resolution and policy. As an organization, our goal is to improve and encourage bicycle commuting, and the proposed Complete Streets resolution and policy will be a big step in the alignment of that goal. Eureka is a bikeable city, and that city is relatively flat, except for a few gulches, and usually we can kind of figure out a way around those. And the residents generally live within 3 miles of most destinations. So bicycling as transportation is sustainable, and it's a low cost mode of transportation, and it benefits with the benefit of improving public health and our mental well-being. But what often keeps people from using their bicycles for transportation is just not feeling comfortable, riding with fast-moving traffic. So what the Complete Streets policy will do is to help reprioritize the comfort and safety of bicyclists and pedestrians, as well as it will reduce the numbers of people seriously injured or killed on our roadways, including those in motor vehicles. So it will also reduce vehicle miles traveled, or in other words, car trips. And this in turn will help reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, as well as the electrical grid and the mining of the precious metals in the case of electric vehicles. So reducing car trips will reduce congestion overall and make our community a little quieter. So I just wanted to repeat that the Humboldt Bay Bicycle Commuters Association wholeheartedly supports the Complete Streets resolution and policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Mark Mueller.
Yeah, hi. I had troubles with the buttons there. Hi, I'm Mark Mueller. I'm on the Transportation Safety Commission, and I wholeheartedly support this complete streets policy. It's really important, I think, to start prioritizing other modes of travel beyond just car travel. It'll help decrease the congestion of cars, making it easier for those who do need to get around in cars to get around easier. And it will improve the ability for other people who are walking or biking to get around the town in a nice way. Having a town that is more walkable and bikeable makes it more pleasant, I think, for everybody. And so it creates a real nice community. So I support this.
Thank you, Mark.
Ash?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, Ash Teeter here with LostCoastPopulist.com. I'm listening to this. It kind of reminds me a bit of the W and Dolbeer project, and I would encourage that a similar survey be put out to the whole community, like just the same way you had 900 people respond in the W and Dolbeer for that small neighborhood, that they weren't in favor of, in that case, which was like losing one lane of the 2 lanes available, with 1 lane being dedicated then to other parking and bicycling. So I'm wondering if that's is that the vision for the whole city then, to shrink us by 1 lane and dedicate a full lane for parking and bicycling? I don't know, one of the previous comments talked about the flow of traffic, and that seems to be on what the people in the W and Dolbeer, they were concerned about the flow of traffic because it really slowed things up around there, though that's not representative of the entire city, I'm sure. But maybe instead we should try a complete sidewalks and make sidewalks usable for bicyclists, because it might be more attainable to get bicyclists used to being around people walking and slowing to accommodate them, or less incidents of serious collision and damage to people, just because you have a car hitting a bicyclist or a person walking. It's going to be a lot more severe, and the bicycle isn't going to be going as fast as people walking, or as cars compared to people walking. So complete sidewalks, that's something to think about. But anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. And again, you can always submit your questions through email.
James and Nicole?
Hi there. This is James Miramontes. And I'd just like to say that I support this initiative for the Complete Streets. As a parent, I don't feel comfortable sending my children out on the streets to bicycle. I often have to load up all the bicycles into a vehicle to take them to a park or somewhere that I do feel is safe. Because there's many streets that are just, I'm going to say, ill-equipped to allow me and my children to safely go where we want to go. And I don't think that anything I read in this policy is going to impact cars in any way. It looks like it's designed to accommodate everyone. And since bicyclists, should be on the street and not on the sidewalk, that I think is an excellent way for us all to work together, get where we're going, and be safer out there. And I hope you guys endorse this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you see anyone else? Do not? Okay. No, come on up. Just in time.
My name is Frederick Breckenridge, and I love this community. It's exciting to be here at this time with the Bay Trail system and whatnot. I've been working on a business for about 10 years with Wheel Fun Rentals out of Santa Barbara and Ventura, with all the incumbent bikes on the boardwalks, the promenades, the Siri bikes, the Mokies, the electric vehicles, and it's been a real awesome experience with them. And I just had a face-to-face meeting in October with them, and they said, "Yeah, you're our guy." After 10 years, I sealed the deal, and I'm trying to just kind of get that out there. And I think that this, I haven't been able to read the details of this, but from the sounds of it, what I'm working with the way those bikes work in those communities, Will Fund Rental would want to come up here and help the municipalities of it. So I'm not that guy, I'm just the liaison at this point in time. I own the website humbayrentals.com if you want to look at it. But I think that might be a lot more commercial, bike, recreational traffic, and it's what we need in our area. Since the start of the Bay Trail system, to see people riding their bikes between Arcata and Eureka, it just feels better. It's cleaner, and when the trails connect, it literally when I interview in Santa Barbara with Wheel Fund Rentals, people say, "Hey, if you guys weren't here, it's Santa Barbara, but we'd still have nothing to do." And so I just want to say, from the sounds of it, I'm going to support this, and Wheel Fund Rentals will be looking at things along the Bay Trail system, but those the family bikes, the Siri bikes with the canopies. Whenever I stay at the Crown Plaza in Ventura or something like that, and I hear laughter, it's always a family or a group of friends on those bikes. And so I'm looking forward to bringing those up, and that might add to your surveys and what you want to be looking for on this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Is there anyone else from the public out there? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to return it back to council for questions and comments. Actually, for comments, Councilmember Castellano.
Thanks. Firstly, just thank you for the Transportation Safety Commission for bringing this forward, and for staff for working so closely with the commission and supporting their work. There are just a couple of things that I wanted to either define or refine a little bit. And one was just maybe it's pet peeve, but both the resolution and the policy mention people who are most vulnerable a couple of times, but I think this term has come up in past council meetings for a variety of different topics. So I just think it would be good to define that within the document as people most vulnerable, or those most vulnerable to harm from collisions, or something along those lines. Just because depending on the context, most vulnerable can change. And I think that, in a city document, I just want to be really clear about what that means within this policy and resolution. And then under performance measures, I did also find that just lack of kind of definition or sort of, more substance around the green streets. I thought there just could be a little bit more definition there. And so I thought adding a performance measure, like a number 12, that would include a number of street trees, swales, bulb outs, plantings, and other features that enhance streetscapes, calm traffic, manage stormwater, and improve neighborhoods, or something to that extent might be useful for fleshing out the idea of green streets within this document. But otherwise, I'm really excited to move it forward, and just appreciate this being on the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Moulton.
I just wanted to make a comment that folks are talking about walking and biking being in the minority. And as somebody who has walked, biked, and driven all over Eureka and Humboldt for many years, I would say that a lot of the reasons people aren't walking and biking is because it's dangerous and the infrastructure isn't there. And I believe we will see those folks who are eager to get out of their cars or get out of their houses on different days able to do that when it's safer to do so. And also that slower traffic is safer traffic, as we see the numbers don't lie. And we're talking about residential streets here. I mean, the vast majority of streets in Eureka are residential streets. We're talking about kids and driveways and schools, and people should be driving slowly. That is not just my opinion, but it's the science of it. So that's my comment. And I wanted to step back. We were talking about green streets, like green, literally green with plants and landscaping, and that's lovely. Traffic calming, and as we all know, beautiful surroundings are good for a variety of reasons. But Councilmember Bauer brought up more like the green as in ecologically sound practices when it comes to constructing the streets or doing any improvements that we might be doing. Could you elaborate on that, or did you have a request on that? I just want to kick that over to you.
Well, Councilmember Castellano brought up a good point, like kind of performance measures, and made me think of this. A performance measure would be tons of aggregate recycled. So, when you grind up the road, put it back down as base, that stuff's not going to, essentially you'll see piles of asphalt when Caltrans grinds that stuff up, and we have nowhere to put it. It's just waste. And not that it's toxic, but it's still just waste. So if we can reuse it, recycle it, put it right back into the road base, that's a positive. That's less, trucking of material, less mining of material out of the rivers. We're always going to have a need for what we call virgin aggregate, virgin rock from rivers and whatnot, but reusing, it's just, it's like reduce, reuse, recycle. And you could do the same thing with roads.
So then is there a city manager Slattery or Director Gerving, is there a measurement or a quantifiable goal you could think of that we could put in that would address that?
Yeah, I think that there could be something added to this. I think that what Councilmember Bauer is talking about, we do where we can, as far as using grindings for base. We use grindings for base. We use grindings for potholes. We use grindings for other things. But what I was getting at is the ability to use it as a part of the asphalt mix is based on the producers of asphalt concrete that we have here. And currently they don't do that. But I think that there could be a measure added, and I would look at Director Gerving as to what that would look like and what percentage would be achievable in order to use it for base.
Perhaps a metric that compares virgin material versus reclaimed material across all projects? Not just road resurfacing, but
yeah, I think one of the things that could be a problem, there's certain times where big projects happen and we do have an excess of grindings, but the availability of grindings would have to factor into that. Sometimes when we redo a road, it's not a complete grind and repave. It's, slurry seal or just an overlay as opposed to grinding it. If Director Gerving can maybe come up with
a metric for us.
Or Special Projects Manager Elsmore.
All right.
Is a perfect person for this.
Can I just give a quick clarification? So, speaking about road projects, a lot of that asphalt does get recycled. So, today in the state of California, don't quote me, but it's either 15 or 25% of the asphalt grindings are allowed to go back into that asphalt and reused in the roadway. So 15 to 25% of the stuff that gets ground off the road goes back to the asphalt plant. It gets stockpiled, and then 15 to 25% goes back into fresh asphalt. So now, like we mill it off, it goes to the plant. It may sit there. The next person who gets asphalt is going to get that, but it all gets utilized. So it doesn't necessarily just get thrown away. It gets used in alleys, gets in a big pile, gets used somewhere else. So a lot of it is getting reused and recycled. For us also, the last few years, we've had much more dollars for Measure H, so we've been able to do a lot more paving. So this last year when we did, for example, 2nd Street construction, which required significant reconstruction of the roadway because the subgrade was so poor, we ground off the road surface, reuse those asphalt grindings in the ground. We use asphalt grindings from other parts of the job, and we're able to reuse that. So per Caltrans guidelines, we can use 15 to 25% of recycled aggregate in our asphalt paving as it is. So we do recycle and use a lot of that currently. So I think some of the the concepts in green streets and the complete streets are to give us the ability to try to use as much of that stuff that we can use. It's going to evolve. It's going to change over time, right? And so, for example, some of those treatments that we didn't call it specifically bulb outs. The stuff that we're going to be able to use is going to change throughout time. We didn't use any bulb outs 5 or 6, 7 years ago. It was kind of a fringe type thing. Now we're using them all over the place, right? So we didn't necessarily call it specific items because those things are going to change. What we want to say is we want to use cutting edge stuff. We want to use context sensitive. We want to be able to use kind of the latest and greatest. So it lacks a little bit of details there, but a lot of it is it's conceptual to say, hey, that's the direction we want to go.
Is there a way that we could allow for that to be in one of the measurables then? Whether it would be
No.
an item 12 or 13.
Yeah, I think 100% because a lot of that data we take when we're doing a job, right? For example, I know we put down 800 tons of asphalt, for example, and I know if we can recycle 25% of that, we're recycling 200 tons. So I think including that as a metric that we go over every year for sure, that can be included as simply as a recount of green technologies and amounts were used throughout the previous year. So some sort of statement along those lines would allow us to take a look at whatever those things are. We could say, this is how many street trees we put in. This is how much recycled aggregate base we used, or whatever that might be. So I think something along those lines would be easy to do.
So more of a general report rather than a specific metric.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could call it out as I can't remember all the metrics in front of me, but it would be an accounting of recycled materials or green technologies that were used throughout the year. I mean, it could be simple as that, and that would open up the window to be whatever those items would be. So
I'm happy with that.
something like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Well, no, that was the direct question I had following that. And so it would be, I guess, kind of piggybacking on what Leslie or Councilmember Castellano had put out there is an item 12 asking for a report on... Mike?
Turn your mic on, hon.
Sorry about that. I'm still getting into the habit of having the internet folk have to hear me because my voice is booming enough in here. What I was trying to get at is if we can add an item 12, I think, to what Councilmember Castellano was suggesting, and that's having some sort of reportable metric, as was just stated by, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Special project manager Elsmore.
Special project manager Elsmore.
Or traffic engineer. You can give him a more official title.
Okay.
Councilmember Bauer?
I wanted to say I appreciate what Councilmember Moulton said, because I often ask that question. I mean, a lot of us here probably walked to school, rode our bikes. We never got rides to school. It's sprinkling. Get out of here. You'll be fine, you know? And I asked that question of friends with kids, like, you did. Why aren't your kids? And they're like, it's not safe. And so when people say it's always in the foreseeable future, you know, we're going to all be using cars, it's like the whole goal of what we do, and as a city and as a community, is we plan for the future. And the future has got to be something that is more conducive to people, to sharing the road, you know, to sharing our transportation surfaces. And that includes bikes and walking. So I'm always kind of a little disappointed that, you know, people want to believe that the future is always going to be cars, and it's not. It's just not. So, you know, I support this, and I want to thank the commission and staff for putting together a really good, plan here. And if I may, I'd like to make a motion.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if I need to include what Councilmember Castellano, would that be, you got that wording?
Yeah, I would just make the motion as amended by discussion here. And I believe Special Projects Manager Elsmore has what he needs. Stop me if I'm wrong, to modify and add a 12. So
Okay.
motion approve as amended.
Okay, motion approved as amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, before we vote, I just have one comment. I just want a clarification, perhaps. So as far as street trees and greenery in that regard, there's a way to spell that out? Is that what I'm understanding? Is that what I'm hearing?
And I don't want to speak, but I think the understanding is that would be a part of the report as far as what would come back to council, as far as how many street trees were planted, how many landscaped areas, how many bioswales, those type of things that were part of these complete streets projects.
Okay.
in there as well. And I agree that when you try and get too definitive on certain things, we did this when we went through the trail, and you say multi-use, leaving it as multi-use as opposed to trying picking out each and everything because you don't know what's going to come up in the future is probably the best way to leave it, so that when new technologies come up or new ideas come up, they can be incorporated into it. But I think that from the Green Streets component would be just as a part of that report, there would be, how many street trees were planted, how many bioswales and other things that were put in as a part of the project.
Great. Okay. And then I just wanted to say that it's really nice. When the Transportation Safety Commission started, the name transportation safety instead of traffic safety, that was discussed because this is transportation for all people, not just for vehicles. And so I really appreciate what you've brought forward. It's been a long time coming, having something written out. So much appreciation to you. And with that, let's vote. I'm not voting.
Councilmember Castellano.
Aye.
Unanimous yes vote. Motion carries.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So moving on to our Lumbar Hills Southwood Unit, Principal Planner Kenyon, or not? It's musical piece.
Good evening, Council. My name is Aubrey Richardson, and I'm an Associate Planner with the Planning Department. Tonight, you will be considering a development agreement for Lumbar Hills Southwood Division Unit Number 6. The item was previously heard at the City Council meeting on January 3rd. This photo serves as a reminder of the project location near the city's southern boundary and is connected to the existing Lumbar Hills subdivision. The development agreement serves as a last extension to prolong the term of the previously approved subdivision map. At the January 3rd meeting, City Council voted to amend Section 2.6 of the development agreement to clarify the traffic impact fees are not covered by Section 2.6, and Council added a condition requiring coordination of the applicant with the Community Services Department on naming and adding signage to Lumbar Hills Park as recommended by Planning Commission. Staff recommends that you adopt Bill number 1024 CS, and I have a suggested motion whenever you are ready. This concludes staff presentation, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Seeing none, we'll open this up to public comment. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to speak on this item? Anyone on Zoom?
Colin Fisk.
Hello again, Council. Colin Fisk with CRTP. We submitted written comments on this item, so I won't belabor those points. But as you know, we believe that this project really should be subject to a more modern and updated environmental review before proceeding. And I guess wanted to emphasize a few points here. One is that I think it's pretty clear that the project, if reviewed under the current standards, doesn't comport with a lot of the policies of the city's current general plan, especially those pertaining to walkable development, which is relevant to the last item. I also think that just to point out that this is a completely, voluntary item for the city. There's no obligation to move this forward at this point. And to that point, the developer really isn't promising anything here, so it's hard to see what the city gains from this. There's no promise of any housing actually being developed over the 10-year period, or certainly not in at any time soon. So I would encourage the city to not move forward with the development agreement at this time, and instead to wait until there is such a time when the developer feels ready to move forward, and to, at that point, provide a modern environmental review for the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Do you see anybody else?
Mark Mueller.
Hello. I just want to say that I'm not in support of this. It's more of an urban sprawl, will lead to more traffic load on our roads in order to get people from the outskirts to the middle of town or wherever else they're going, and is in an area that's, I don't know, it just seems like it's not a great place to bike or walk to, and that there's no services or things that you would want to do out there besides travel all the way to somewhere else in Eureka to do whatever you need to do, buy things or go out for the night or whatever. Anyhow, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. See anyone else? Okay, great. So with that, we'll bring it back to council for comments or a motion. Oh, Councilmember Castellano? I see your hand up there.
Yeah. So, as I stated at the last meeting, I do support this and appreciate that the changes have been brought forward. I understand, our public commenters' concerns. And at the same time, I hear every day of people who are looking for housing. This was included in our housing element. So, we have already created planning documents related to this housing. Also, I do think it will, prevent people who are looking for this type of housing from purchasing it in more distant communities and driving even further here. And related to that, I do think that we need to look at microtransit and those kinds of opportunities to serve, not only housing, in Eureka that's more, on the edges of town, but also, housing in Cutton and places that aren't currently served by public transit or aren't served well enough. I do think there's an opportunity there for microtransit, or, I know there's some new experiments being looked at in McKinleyville. So I'm really excited to see how those go, and hopefully we can apply those here as well. And with that, if you put up staff's recommendation, I'll make it again. I'm kind of working on a iPad here, or I can pull it up myself. I think I got it. Okay. Thank you. I move the City Council waive full reading and read by title only and adopt Bill number 1024-CS, an ordinance of the City of Eureka adopting a development agreement for Lombard Hills Southwood Unit 6 APN 301-031-039.
I'll second.
Sure. Councilmember Fernandez, we've got a motion. It's been seconded.
And so going with that, and I understand we've had discussions about this as it pertains to our general plan and the housing that we need. I think we understand how difficult it is in terms of alternative transportation, whether it's walkability, bike riding, any other means, as was just highlighted by Councilmember Castellano. So as we're moving forward and we're looking at our complete streets policy, how do these two comport then, if at all, moving forward?
As far as a complete streets policy? It is a complete streets policy. If there was to be new roads or anything put in there, it would be considered for adding complete streets. So if we got to the point, I don't know where we're at in CIP for any roads that are up in Lombard Hills, but there would be an opportunity to look at that for complete streets. As it's built now, there could be changes in the regulations as what's required for the roads when they build the roads. But right now, I think that what Councilmember Castellano is referring to is microtransit and those type of things. If there's a traffic impact fee that's implemented by the city at some point in time, I don't know if the funding would be adequate to do that, but it could be something that could be considered for the use of those fees for a microtransit. I do know that as a part of the development down in Old Town at 3rd and G, it's being called the Earth Center. There's thoughts of looking into microtransit there and being able to expand that to different neighborhoods could be a possibility as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Contreras Deloach.
Yeah, I guess kind of I'm piggybacking or the same thing that Councilmember Fernandez brought up, but that area out there, I'm just trying to figure out if there's any way down the line to make that accessible in any way except for by a car, because it's an incredibly narrow road. It's got a hill here just to access Lombard Hills itself, not, including once you're in it. And then golf course right here. There's no sidewalk at all or anything that I recall in that area.
So I would think that our right-of-way would allow for that if we needed to expand. However, there are plans for a loop trail that's going to go around the city. So Beta Zoo so Waterfront Trail is basically the first part of the loop. The second part of the loop would be Beta Zoo. Beta Zoo would go from the Waterfront Trail up to basically the Sequoia Park Duck Pond. And from that point forward, there's a plan to have that trail go through gulches and greenways down to Campton and Fern and onto the golf course and all the way around to the other south end of the trail, which would be on Herrick. How we get there could possibly be through this area here, through the gulches and greenways to come down on the backside there and connect into Elk River and go on to Herrick to have that full loop. So that's one of the possibilities that could be for multimodal or alternative modes of transportation to get to and from that development. That I don't know specifically what that right of way is, but I'm pretty sure that if there was a need to put in facilities, there would be a possibility to do so. But from just a pedestrian and, bike traffic, trails would be an option for getting to and from that development, as well as the microtransit as well.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded. Please vote.
Councilmember Castellano.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras Deloach, nay. Motion carries.
4 yes votes.
4 yes votes. Councilmember Contreras Deloach dissenting. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so report and action items. Letter on support of SB 58, decriminalization of certain hallucinogenic substances. And we'd like a report from City Attorney Luna.
Thank you, Mayor Burgell and Council. I don't have a report necessarily. This letter was garnered from the office of Senator Weiner himself. I reached out to see whether or not they had a letter in support that we could present here today as part of the discussion or to lead off the discussion that was requested last meeting, initially by Councilmember Bauer and I believe additionally others wanted to have this on the agenda so that there could be a discussion of SB 58 and the possibility of supporting via this letter legislation to decriminalize certain hallucinogens. So with that discussion, questions, I welcome those.
Councilmember Bauer.
No, thank you. This is I don't know if you've had a chance or people have reviewed the bill, which is in its second round. I think it was last year as well, Senate Bill 519 last year or something like that. But
correct, yes.
It's a challenge for me. I kind of go around and around thinking about this, but I really think there's three main issues for myself. There are substances like ibogaine, which is derived from root bark, which really helps people with opioid abuse. Can actually help them get out of that vicious cycle. DMT, psilocybin, they're proven effective for people with PTSD. It can help our veterans, get out of serious depression and anxiety. So there's all these real definitive medical benefits that are derived from things that currently are illegal. At one time cannabis was illegal, and we've come to see it for a lot of people see it as a medicine. So, although the bill's not perfect, like I honestly have concern, and probably same thing with other substances that I don't think kids should be using it. I think it should be a lot of these substances should be used under medical supervision. There's plenty of stuff to watch and books to read about how terminally ill patients are offered quite a bit of comfort when they've been under supervision and done psilocybin, like really life-changing for them who are coming to the end of their life. Veterans being helped by a lot of the things listed in this bill. And then mental illness, we're talking about that. And we all know that that's a huge part of the problem we see in our community with people on the streets suffering from mental illness. And some of these substances help, for all kinds of things that, regular drugs aren't working, having a friend who was on a pharmaceutical that committed suicide, maybe there would have been a different option for him, so like all bills, there's things we like and we don't like, and I know my friends in law enforcement, who pretty universally disagree with this bill. I just hope, that we can figure out a better way. I think probably every substance we use to help people, was probably illegal at one time. And we slowly work our way through it and think about it, and science provides us a way forward. So I'd like to see our society change and think about it a little differently, and think that, there's things that we've all been afraid of, and we think because it's illegal, it's bad. But there's a lot of things that these substances do that really help people, and people with PTSD, and not just veterans, but others who suffer from some crisis can be helped. So I'm not married to the idea that, we support this wholeheartedly. Like, we support with amendments, like should be done under supervision or something to that effect. But I still believe really strongly, coming from a science background, that this is something that we need to consider, and society needs to consider that maybe it'll help with all the mental illness challenges we face. So, I'm still supportive, and I'm open to other thoughts about how we can support something like this.
Does anybody else have any questions? Or Councilmember Fernandez?
No questions, and I appreciate you bringing this forward and making us aware of the legislation there, Councilmember Bauer. And I appreciate whoever put this letter together, calling out specifically the war on drugs. I may have used the phrase catastrophic failure, but I appreciate what's been put in here so far, and this is a yes vote for me.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that we will take public comment on this as well before we ask for a motion. Thank you.
So we're on questions now. And seeing no questions, we're going to open up the public comment. Is there anyone here from the... Hi. Welcome.
Yep, thank you. Hello, Mayor and council members. So my name is Skip Simbera, and I'm with the organization Decriminalize Nature Humboldt. So I personally, as somebody that have benefit tremendously from these plants, I did so illegally, with, fear of prosecution. And fortunately, I was willing to take that risk, and it did help me tremendously in my life. We are the group that were responsible for the decriminalization of entheogens in the city of Arcata. I'm glad that the council is discussing the support of SB 58, and I would also like to voice my support and the support of our organization for the bill. While we are hopeful that a statewide bill will pass, we also realize that there are no guarantees that this bill will make it through the state legislative process. We watched as this bill's predecessor, SB 519, spent 2 years going through the process, only to be stripped down to nothing more than a study in the Appropriations Committee, which resulted in Senator Scott Weiner pulling the bill back. The Eureka City Council has the power to affect change in our local community now. We do not need to wait for a statewide bill. We are proposing to the City Council to consider passing a resolution that can mirror SB 58, effectively decriminalizing naturally occurring psychedelic medicines in the city of Eureka. We are ready to work with council members to finalize a resolution that is agreeable to all parties. So I heard, concerns that the bill is not complete. The City Council here has the opportunity to pass a resolution and make the amendments for the city here, that SB 518 may be missing. I've sent emails to each of you to introduce myself and our organization, and we would love the opportunity to work together to create change in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again. I'm Frederick Breckenridge.
Hi.
A veteran of the United States Army. There's been a lot of studies on the positive effects of psilocybin and PTSD and helping our veterans put their best foot forward after all the trauma they've endured. I appreciate the way Steve Bauer said it, and you as well, Councilman Fernandez. So something that I want to concentrate on is right now they're prescribing our children methylphenidate versus methamphetamines. Methamphetamines would be Ritalin, Adderall, and even cocaine you can get a prescription for. Well, methylphenidate includes guanfacine, and they argue that the chemical structure is different, but only since they added morphine and benzos. This is what they're giving to our children. When they turn 18, they lose their insurance and they lose the right to relief from abusive childhood experiences or ADHD. So when you Google, because I'm arguing with the doctor, well, that's methamphetamine. No, it's not. Well, when I Google what does it test for on a drug screen? Well, methylphenidate will give a false positive for all of those, opioids and LSD. I was surprised when I found that. And this is what they're giving our children. So our most basic right, one of our most basic rights is the right to relief from pains and traumas. Post-traumatic experiences included. So I'm gonna share a story from when I was younger that kind of helps me relate this a little bit more. So I was a younger adult, and I had friends that were firefighters. They were older, and one of them had a bachelor party, and the police brought the entertainment and the party favors. That was the first time I tried the cocaine, right? So when we look at this, and we realize that when we decriminalize these drugs, the psychotropic drugs, that we also relieve the feeling of a criminal and the paranoia that affects the fight or flight of are youth that are coming up that are being prescribed these drugs, but cloaked for ADHD. And I think that I was invited to that party because I had a Humboldt Connect for the firefighters, you know? And so there's this whole menagerie about drugs are bad, the war on drugs. Well, apparently Hunter Biden, if you have enough money, drugs aren't bad because you can get a prescription for cocaine and methamphetamine straight up. So I think it's at least something to address because and take the cloaks off of it and look more into that. So I support that.
Thank you. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Jen Bruce. I'm also a founding member of Decriminalize Nature Arcata. I also serve on the board with Dr. Larry Norris, who's the nationwide founder of Decriminalize Nature. I'm a person in 13 years in continuous recovery from addiction after 17 years of continuous addiction from generations of addiction on both sides of my family, all veterans. I went the traditional route and it worked great, but I was still struggling with so many of the disorders that you hear these medicines treat. And so thank goodness I had the resources to leave the country and go to Mexico for an ibogaine treatment 5 years into my recovery, and it changed my life. It made me realize that I had been born in trauma and had never felt good in my own skin my entire life. And I've come to learn that all addiction is a type of PTSD. These are not co-occurring disorders. And the majority of treatment-resistant mental health disorders that we're seeing in this country is a result of trauma. Mm-hmm. And that's neurological dysregulation. It's also a spiritual health issue. And so I went on and I've worked in the field for 12 years. I've been working in the psychedelic field for 7. I teach at the leading psychedelic therapy training program in the world. I work in functional medicine, nutrition for addiction, and mental health recovery. And I was honored to work with the first cohort of veterans to go through ibogaine therapy. I get a lot of private clients. They have to be privileged to afford to leave the country legally, access these life-saving treatments and soul-saving treatments where nothing else works. And so, you know, I just feel it's been frustrating for me to have to get on an airplane and only bring my clients that have the eliteness to afford to be able to go and do these things while driving by all of these people in my community that suffer, that don't have the access to these treatments. They've only been illegal for a little while. The concerns we all have, my daughter's in the audience, I'm concerned too, but those are all going off of the failed social experiment of the 1960s and the wrong information that was instilled during the war on drugs, which we can all see doesn't work. The laws don't keep people from misusing these. They keep people that are law-abiding, like first responders, veterans, and people recovering from addiction who want to get their lives back together from accessing these medicines. So I'm going to go with Skip and say that it would be really great if we could get Decriminalize Nature passed here in Eureka, California, so that more of our veterans, first responders, and the epic amount of people struggling with treatment-resistant mental health disorders and addiction get the help that they need. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cameron Hanf. I'm a psychology student at Cal Poly Humboldt, and I've been part of Decriminalize Nature Humboldt for over a year. I wanted to say thank you for allowing us to have this discussion today, and I also wanted to mention that one of the things that we had in agreement with the Arcata City Council when decriminalization was passed is that we would stick around and lend our community with support and education spaces. So I just wanted to mention that if this was to continue in Eureka, we would extend that into Eureka and provide those support spaces here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else in chambers that wants to comment? Seeing none, we'll move over to Zoom.
Happy trails. Happy Trails, you have your hand up for public comment.
Thank you. Sorry. My name is Karen Brooks. I live in Bayside. And Dr. Gabor Mate has been, he's a physician and psychologist who speaks about this and speaks about trauma and addiction. And so this is definitely an emerging therapy. I'm not an advocate of big pharma. There are some legitimate medicines that help people, but it's not a one size fits all. My worry and my caution is there have been some therapeutic values with the medicines they've talked about, but gosh, we are just on the beginning of this treatment protocol, and there really isn't much of a protocol from what I know, which is just a layperson's in the community. So I caution Eureka kind of being the leader in this. I think there needs to be more discussions and experts in the field really kind of educating all of us about these therapies before we just go jumping in. Because you have to, we don't know what the unintended consequences are. This is not necessarily one size fits all. From what I understand, it's like when all other therapies fail, then let's try this. And there have been a lot of good and help that's come with it, but I'm just concerned about the decriminalizing of it. And it just, everyone thinking, oh yeah, let's just take this drug. And these are powerful drugs and they need to be used wisely and properly. And thank you for your time. And I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anyone else on Zoom? Okay, so we'll bring it back to council for comments and discussion. Councilmember Contreras Deloach. Why that's so hard for me.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on this, just researching the bill from last year, and just some of the complaints or criticisms, some of the concerns. Definitely, I saw that there was a lot of concern from law enforcement about this and what their worries were. And I also, one of the other things I thought, okay, so, and then from a scientific perspective, medically, what are the concerns with this? And there are some people that have bad trips and some of that is permanent. But I was, but that's something that happens with pharmaceuticals as well, that things go terribly wrong with pharmaceuticals as well. There actually isn't a total lack of, there's actually a lot of research that's been done. There was a lot of research into it prior to it becoming criminalized many, many decades ago. And then there's been quite a bit since. I have a family that I was surprised to learn that that there's, I think our military represents like 1% or something of the population. I was surprised because I have a family where we have lots of military, sheriff and police officers as well. And so I've seen firsthand the issues that people suffer in those situations and the impacts those have on families. So when they first started talking about psilocybin and the possibilities of what that could do, I really tuned into that and thought, okay, let's see where this goes. And so I think pitfalls notwithstanding, and there's definitely some, this is an imperfect bill. One thing I'll just mention is it's interesting that in this included group of substances, they exclude peyote. I'm not exactly sure why, and strangely, that's one that tribal peoples in the U.S. and Central America as well use in rituals. So I'm not sure how that one got excluded. But anyway, so there's just a number of issues. It's imperfect. and I think the other thing too is decriminalization and legalization. So I spent the week kind of researching what is the difference between those two. Those are not the same things. This is not legalization. This is decriminalization, which is an entirely different thing. And that's, more about not directing resources towards persecution of individuals or not directing law enforcement that direction so that there is kind of a freedom. I think it should be medicinal personally. I don't think that it's, I have concerns again. I have a large extended family. I have concerns about substance use and how that can really go off the rails very quickly, especially for people who have experienced trauma. And I also am very concerned about sending any kind of message to the youth. Our brains aren't even fully developed until about 25. Using any kind of substance before the age of 25 is, possibly very detrimental. And we still don't know that. We don't know that with even marijuana yet. So there's a lot we don't know. So certainly not a blanket approval of that, but I think that this is just terribly important for those that it will benefit. And I think there's always the potential for anything, including prescribed pharmaceuticals for abuse. And we can't really have control over that. And we kind of, as a society, we weigh that out and we say, but we need the proper and good use for this. So we're going to accept, that there may be some disadvantages with this as well. And so those are kind of my thoughts on it.
Councilmember Castellano?
Thanks. I just wanted to say real quick, I'm pretty sure just on a little bit of research that the reason peyote is not included, but mescaline, non-peyote mescaline is because peyote is threatened in Mexico and with extinction. So I think they're trying to prevent the harvesting of a threatened plant, not because anything with the plant itself, just for that point of clarification. I can understand, folks' concerns. I do think, our support of this bill is a small step, and if anything moves forward at the state level, it will do so with as many precautions in place, as we've seen with other substances. I support this. I'm open to small changes if other council members have that, but also willing to make a motion to support this if folks don't have changes.
Councilmember Moulton.
I don't have any changes to suggest. I just wanted to add to the conversation that decriminalization leads to more opportunities for destigmatizing and therefore education. So we can learn more and more ways for people to talk about these substances and their uses and talk about ways to engage with them safely with their kids, with their families, with their communities, and learn real facts about how stuff works as opposed to sort of black market legends about things. And I'm in support of sending this letter.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? Councilmember Bauer?
No, and I appreciate the discussion, and I appreciate recognizing that it's decriminalization and not legalization. That's a important distinction. I'm also, as an option to review and work with our attorney, Autumn, and see if there's a more nuanced language we could provide, like to address your issues about. I agree, young minds, are a challenge to, and I don't know, like for these substances, what the effects are on really young minds, especially under 23 or 24, 25. And not that it, the bills are just now really getting started. February is kind of a big month, so there is some time to come back in a couple of weeks and say, here's a more nuanced approach to what we think the bill should look like, how it should be supervised. I'm fine with that. And I'm also fine with if you just want to go with a straight letter of support and not think of it anymore. We can come back in a couple of weeks. It's kind of a...
I feel like we had a motion from Councilmember Castellano along those lines, and we were so close to a second from Councilmember Moulton along those lines.
She didn't actually make the motion.
She didn't, but we're so close.
No, Councilmember Castellano didn't actually make the motion. She said she would be willing to make the motion if there were no.
I'll make the motion. I move that we send this letter of support what's the motion I should make?
I apologize, Councilmember Moulton. I did leave it a little vague, but I think if you just make a motion that Mayor Burgell sign the letter on behalf of the council and send it off.
I move that Mayor Burgell sign this letter as written and send it off on behalf of the council.
I'll second.
Thank you. And with that, I just have a couple of comments. I'm just trying to get used to when I can and can't comment. I really appreciate this coming forward. I think it's really important. As many of you, we all know, we're in a mental health crisis. We're in a mental health crisis. We walk down the street, we see it all the time. COVID has exacerbated that problem. We've got people living in their homes that are, it doesn't discriminate. Mental health issues don't discriminate. And I think it's really important for us to be willing to look into any kind of opportunity within reason that may be a great tool in the toolbox, because there are no cookie cutter solutions. There are a lot of things out there that may or may not work. And this this one speaks close to home to me. It reminds me of cannabis. In 1984, my mom was diagnosed and died of breast cancer, and we couldn't get cannabis for her. We had to get it illegally so that she could eat and be comfortable, and that now has changed. We've opened our minds a little bit and seen that the medicinal values instead of the fear. And so I'm hopeful that as we continue to move forward with these things, we'll be able to develop much more robust treatments for people and solutions for folks who currently don't have any and can't afford them. So thank you all for the conversation. And with that, if there's no more comments, please vote.
Yes, this is an action item.
Okay.
Councilmember Castellano?
Aye.
Unanimous yes vote, motion carries.
Thank you. And so if we could get Principal Planner Kenyon, we're going to look at our Coastal Land Use Plan Review Session 5. Do you want to take a break?
Mayor, can I request we take our brief break now?
We certainly will. We will be back in 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to be listening to Principal Planner Kenyon regarding the Coastal Land Use Permit, or not permit, the Coastal Land Use Plan Review Section 5.
Good evening, Council. We're proposing a comprehensive update to our coastal land use plan, and we're proposing the update be organized into 6 chapters, and Council started reviewing draft chapters in October, and has now also reviewed chapters 2, 3, and 4 in the applicable glossary terms. So we're on the final chapter, coastal zone hazards. And once we complete this initial review, staff will incorporate feedback received to date and compile an updated draft, which will be posted on the city's new website for additional public review and comment. Then the city will begin the process of comprehensively updating the coastal zoning code. So the draft coastal zone hazards chapter includes 5 sections. The first section is a catch-all that includes policies applicable to more than one hazard type, while the other sections are hazard specific. And tonight, I'm going to step back and talk more broadly about sea level rise and the Coastal Act framework before touching on some draft policy highlights. In talking about sea level rise, it's helpful to start by understanding current high tidal elevations on Humboldt Bay. The mean annual maximum water is currently 8.8 feet elevation. These are tidal levels associated with storms and king tides. So if your structure is at a location along the shoreline that gets flooded by mean annual maximum water, like Pine Hill Road, flooding is occurring around 4 times a year. Mean monthly maximum water is the average monthly highest tide, and it is currently 7.7 feet. This water elevation occurs about once a month. And then there's mean higher high water, 6.5 feet, which is the daily average high tide and occurs approximately every 1 to 2 days. If you notice, average king tides are only about a foot above monthly average high tides, and monthly average high tides are only about 1 foot above the daily average. So this means with 1.1 feet of sea level rise, the king tides of today start to occur once a month. And with another 1.5 feet of sea level rise, the king tides of today become a daily occurrence. Based on the Ocean Protection Council's sea level rise projections for the North Spit tide gauge, which are currently considered the best available science, 1.1 feet of sea level rise is projected to occur within 20 years within the planning period for this LUP, while 2.3 feet of sea level rise is projected to occur sometime between 2050 and 2080. There's really just 2 key Coastal Act policies when addressing hazards. The first one, 30253, talks about new development minimizing risk to life and property in areas of high hazard, and assuring stability and structural integrity, and not contributing to erosion or instability, or in any way requiring the construction of protective devices that would substantially alter natural landforms along bluffs and cliffs. So it's important to note this policy prevents the construction of shoreline protective devices only where it would alter natural landforms along bluffs and cliffs. The other policy is 30235, and it states that shoreline protective devices shall be permitted when required to serve coastal dependent uses or to protect existing structures or public beaches in danger from erosion. It is considered an override policy allowing shoreline protective devices for certain types of development, even when inconsistent with other Coastal Act policies. Under this policy, existing structures are afforded protection, and the Coastal Commission believes existing structures is referring to structures in existence prior to the adoption of the Coastal Act in 1976, while many local jurisdictions assert this means any existing structure. So while there isn't a lot of policy guidance in the Coastal Act related to hazards, the Coastal Commission has put out a lot of guidance documents explaining the types of policies they expect to see in LCPs. The guidance documents break sea level rise adaptation into 3 general strategies. There's retreat, which means, relocating or removing existing development out of hazard areas and limiting the construction of new development there. Accommodation strategies modify existing development or design new development to decrease hazard risks, such as by elevation. So, for instance, this house in King Salmon was designed to accommodate flooding. And then the third type of adaptation is protection, which is employing some sort of engineered structure or other measure to defend the shoreline in place without changes to the protected development. And protection strategies can further be divided into hard and soft armoring measures. So this is hard armoring, and then soft armoring refers to the use of natural features like beaches, dune systems, and wetlands to buffer coastal areas. And then there's hybrid approaches that use both soft and hard armoring to defend development in place. So the Coastal Commission's policy guidance discourages hard protection because it causes coastal squeeze. So when hard structures are used to protect back shoreline development, they become barriers that fix the back of the shoreline, and they impede the ability of beaches and habitats to naturally migrate inland. And so because they can't migrate inland, they get caught between the rising water and the shoreline structure, and they're lost. And this is a big environmental justice issue in beach communities where hard armoring is used to protect $1 million vacation homes for the wealthy and results in the loss of beach access for the general public. Luckily, in Eureka, we don't have this type of beachfronting development where there is conflict with public access. And here we actually use our armoring or levees for shoreline access. On Humboldt Bay, coastal squeeze could, however, result in the loss of vulnerable intertidal habitats like salt marsh. This is not only bad for the health of the bay, but also for our adaptive capacity because salt marsh is great at absorbing wave energy. Also, another issue with hard armoring is that it causes erosion, which creates a feedback loop where you need more armoring. And not only does hard armoring have some negative results, but it also doesn't completely solve the problem of sea level rise. So for instance, in Fields Landing, which is below 8 feet in elevation, when there's king tides occurring, salt water rises through the storm drains, flooding surface streets. So in addition to tidal barriers, with sea level rise, low-lying areas will need to plug their storm drains and actively pump stormwater runoff into the bay because they will no longer be able to gravity drain rainwater runoff. Another issue is that we already have high groundwater elevations in many places around the bay. And as sea level rise, groundwater will also rise near the shoreline and could eventually emerge on the surface and cause flooding. When the Coastal Commission permits new structures along the shoreline in their retained jurisdiction, they don't allow structures to rely on existing or new shoreline armoring, and instead require the structures to be elevated to ensure they will be safe from flooding over their anticipated design life. For a new mixed-use structure, the Commission would say the design life is at least 75 years. So they would look to 2100 and they would use the medium-high risk aversion scenario and say the structure needs to be designed for 6.3 to 7.6 feet of sea level rise, which requires a lot of elevation in a lot of places along our low-lying bayfront. So a number of LCP updates have failed in recent years over disagreement between the Coastal Commission and local jurisdictions over sea level rise hazard policies. And the disagreements mainly focus on when shoreline armoring is allowed. In order for our LUP to take effect, it must be certified by the Coastal Commission. In reviewing the document, the Commission has 3 choices. They can certify as submitted, they can deny certification, or they can deny certification as submitted, but approve if the city adopts the Commission's edits, which they call suggested modifications. If this third option happens, the city has 2 options to respond. We can either adopt every single one of the Commission's edits verbatim or start over. So it's a bad place to be in because we lose control over our policy language. So staff's overall goal in writing this draft Coastal Zone Hazards chapter was to write policies strong enough to make it hard for the Coastal Commission staff to justify making edits through suggested modifications. If we put in policies that clearly conflict with the Coastal Act or don't include enough policy direction, this chapter could get rewritten through suggested modifications, and the policies could then become really difficult for the city. For instance, our current 2040 general plan policies try to grant us a right to armoring beyond what is allowed by the Coastal Act. If we kept those policies in, the Coastal Commission would rewrite them and would say armoring is prohibited for all new development, which is more inflexible than the policy needs to be. So we proposed a new draft policy, including Coastal Act 30253 verbatim, to be clear shoreline protection is only prohibited along bluffs and cliffs. And we also include policy language allowing shoreline armoring if it is consistent with all policies of the LUP. So if the armoring doesn't hurt public access and there's mitigation for any coastal resource impacts, we can approve it. We also included a policy allowing protection temporarily in cases where critical infrastructure is threatened and there is an immediate public health and safety concern, which is something discussed in the Commission's guidance on critical infrastructure adaptation. The Coastal Commission wants new development to be designed to be safe for sea level rise over its anticipated life. But we have included language indicating design and development for the worst case scenario isn't always appropriate and feasible. And we hope the Coastal Commission will allow this flexibility if we only issue a temporary authorization for such development and require a future adaptation plan and acknowledgement from the applicant that future removal of the development may be necessary. There's also a typical LCP policy added by the Commission requiring removal of shoreline protective structures if no longer necessary to serve existing development, which we've included, but we added caveats that removal is only required if the protection is causing adverse impacts to coastal resources and if there's no greater coastal resource benefit to leaving it in place. This is thinking forward towards hybrid shoreline protection with ecological benefits, and we might want to leave them in place. There's also a typical policy requiring site-specific hazard reports for all development in hazardous areas. We added a caveat to this requirement that the report is needed unless information is already available for the site at a level of detail adequate to ensure project compliance with the LCP. With the hope we will be producing area-wide assessments to avoid site-by-site analysis. We are also not calling for reliance on shoreline protection in any one area because we don't think the Coastal Commission would be amenable to that at this point without more detailed planning. But we do indicate we are working towards a coordinated approach to get away from inefficient parcel by parcel analysis and adaptation. This is something Public Works Engineering is spearheading with their CIP planning work, which you will be hearing a presentation about in the next couple of months. So that's it for my presentation tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Principal Planner Kenyon? Okay, seeing none, we will open this up to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this item?
Other than all the acronyms and stuff, which is hard to kind of figure out what you're talking about, I think it's really good that you're looking at the coastal plan, in its entirety and recognizing the importance in our climate changing world. I took a trip on the Mattakit for the Which Way the Wind Festival and learned a lot about the history of our coastline and in the bay and such, and the information about hard armoring and soft armoring or combos, and the reality of nature doing what it wants. This is really vitally important stuff. So I'm glad that you're looking at it. And I also just want to remind you do an acknowledgement at the beginning of the meeting about the WIOT. And it would be really important, for their voice to be heard on issues like this, because it's their future and their future generations living here as well that will be impacted by this. And it's important that whatever you choose to do, you get some input from those who've been here before. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any? Oh. Sure. Come on down.
This one keeps me up at night. Sea levels rising. The hard armoring and the soft armoring and the salt marsh. I'm not sure what the outlook for the salt marshes look like if the sea levels rise, but the opportunity to hard armor and then some soft armoring to complement that. I'm a historic preservationist. That's where my heart is at in this community, is the historic preservation program and whatnot. So maintaining the character of our community is really a necessity, and our wildlife. But also we have a population bloom coming up, an opportunity to hard armor, structurally integrate for maybe some, place to park your boat next to your house like we have in Fields Landing, and build up areas like that. And so I like your presentation a lot, and there's a lot to be thought about with that. But I like what they've done in like the Channel Islands Harbor, and they've expanded that. into areas that were reserved as marshlands, but still it built something that was able to complement the community and then also defend it at the same time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else in chambers, is there anybody on Zoom that would like to make a comment? Okay, so seeing no one, then we'll bring it back to council for comments. If you have any comments.
I think you did a fantastic job on this. It was a very lengthy read.
Councilmember Bauer.
No, thank you for the great presentation. I just want to say it's pretty amazing how far we've come, like in the past few decades, where we're actually discussing this, because it's going to happen, you know. And defense of our community is critical, but also recognizing that we have to protect. They allow the salt marshes to move and habitats to move. So I commend the effort, and I hope we are successful in our LUP. And I just want to say, if you want a good read too about sea level rise, is read James Hansen, who was the first one that really brought up what he called global warming at the time. Now we call climate change, and it's called Scientific Reticence to Sea Level Rise. And it'll make you think long term what we really face with some significant levels of rise, and people need to be aware of it. It's not a doom and gloom thing, but it's much more than we expected. And so what we got to do is plan long term, but understand it'll be a changing environment for next 100 years that will change how we live. So check it out, and thank you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Castellano.
Again, thank you for all of your thought and clear knowledge, and the examples you with these are so clear, and I feel like I learned more from seeing them, or at least clarified my understanding. A couple of, let's see, for CZH 4.4, the shoreline hazard report. I just want to say that I appreciate that it's in there. I do think and hope that it will be an opportunity for the city to potentially work with landowners or kind of create work with people to create a more extensive report versus like individual people having to conduct in separate reports over and over again. I think there could be some cost savings there. And then for the CZH 4.11, the coordinated approach, I do agree with that in some cases. Yet, so my understanding is that would be the people could create an assessment district. So basically could create a kind of special tax program to create their own, infrastructure related to sea level rise, which I'm not completely against, but, again, they would be withholding tax from potential other sources of public good. And so I guess I would kind of advocate for that in some cases, or in limited cases. I wouldn't want to necessarily kind of give blanket permission for people to kind of not pay taxes to support properties that were going to be inundated or are highly likely to be inundated, or where retreat may be more likely or practical. So I guess I would be curious, Principal Planner Kenyon, like your thoughts on that?
I don't know if forming an assessment district necessarily means that it might mean that you just have to pay more taxes in your area, and not that it would take away from you paying taxes towards other things. And in this policy, it was
contemplated this could be a potential thing for an area where there's one comprehensive adaptation solution, such as on Jacobs Avenue. They all rely on the same levee, so they could form an assessment district to additionally tax themselves to pay for levee improvement over time. That was the thought.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. That helps. I would be supportive of that. Just not, I wouldn't necessarily want to create some sort of loophole that would otherwise prevent people from, contributing to other sources of public good.
Great. Do you have any other comments? All right. Well, seeing none, there's no vote on this, right? This is just a direction. So we will move on to, thank you so much for your report. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to move on to Mayor Pro Tem. So the recommendation is to
Lane thought he was out.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. A few more minutes, Director Miller. So the recommendation is to elect a mayor pro tem to serve for 2023. And I'm curious, it's a great opportunity. It's really a good time. I'm curious if we have any nominations for that role. Councilmember Bauer.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Castellano to serve as mayor pro tem.
Great. Do we have anybody else who wants to nominate themselves or nominate someone else? Okay, well, with that, then we will vote, right? So we need a motion and a second.
I was going to nominate. I'll second.
Was that your motion?
Yes.
Motion and seconded. Yes. So we'll go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Castellano.
Aye.
Unanimous yes vote. Oh, Councilmember Bauer, your vote wasn't up there. Unanimous yes vote. Motion carries.
Congratulations, Councilmember Castellano. That's awesome. Okay, so now we will move on to council memberships on boards, commissions, committees, subcommittees, and ad hoc committees. So we're going to go at these one at a time. And I have some ideas about who are interested in these positions. And what we will do, I suppose, is we will look for nominations or interest, and then we will vote on a motion. Is that right?
We can do
no.
it by consensus.
We're going to do that by consensus. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first group, we have Humboldt Bay Fire Authority. They meet the third Wednesday at 2 p.m. I happen to know that that's a really great and awesome position. Councilmember Moulton?
Mayor, I'm interested in joining this commission.
Awesome. Anybody else? Mario? Councilmember Fernandez?
Yes.
You're also interested.
I am.
So, Councilmember Bauer.
I'd like to maintain my position.
You get to.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. You're in.
Count.
I was just going to say, I'm okay with not being the alternate if one of the people who's interested would like to be the alternate.
Thank you. Okay, so if we've got two people, Assistant City Manager Powell, assistance in navigation of this particular item?
I think how we've done it before is the members, they kind of talk about their reason, or they don't have to talk about their reason for being on it, but if one would like to be an alternate and allow another one to move forward. I have also seen a coin has been used in the past. So
I would recommend Rochambeau.
Oh, yes, rock, paper, scissors.
Just a coin flip's probably more equitable.
Okay, so friends, how would you like to proceed? Did you want to have a little conversation and tell us about yourselves and your your reasons for wanting to be with the Fire JPA, besides that they're awesome to be with? Or do you want to flip a coin? Let's flip a coin. Oh my goodness. I might have a coin somewhere. I have a penny up here. That's not really good. No.
Get one?
Did you get one? So, are you going to flip it, or do you want me to flip it?
I'll let you guys decide.
Okay, so. Yes, so heads or tails, come on.
You call it, Councilmember Fernandez.
Okay.
What do you got?
Tails.
Heads. Councilmember Moulton, you are in. And Councilmember Fernandez, would you care to be the alternate? Great.
That's the only other position left.
It is. Well, I just, don't know if that's what you'd be interested in. So, okay. It's Councilmember. All right. So moving on to Humboldt Del Norte Hazardous Material Response Authority. They meet quarterly. Do I have to read the description? Should I read the description? The Humboldt Del Norte Hazardous Material Response Team was established in 1993 to provide for response to emergencies involving hazardous materials. The HMRT is funded primarily through a joint powers agreement between Humboldt County, Del Norte County, City of Eureka, City of Crescent City, City of Arcata, City of Blue Lake, City of Ferndale, City of Rio Dell, and City of Trinidad. I can breathe now. The JPA establishes the Humboldt Del Norte Hazardous Material Response Authority. The HMRA board consists of elected officials of each member agency and meets quarterly to provide insight to the team. It looks like Councilmember Contreras-Deloche might be interested in that. Great. Do we have anybody else interested in this position? Or as an alternate? We do need an alternate for this. Think of all the people you'll get to meet and engage with. It's going to be awesome.
Mayor, I will.
Thank you, Councilmember
To be the alternate on that
Moulton. So there's no vote on that one. All right, Humboldt Transit Authority. The Humboldt Transit Authority is a joint powers authority between Humboldt County and the cities of Arcata, Eureka, Fortuna, Rio Dell, and Trinidad. That was Supervisor Arroyo. And now it looks like we have Councilmember Castellano is interested. Yes? She's the alternate currently. So is there someone, it looks like I have Councilmember Fernandez as an alternate. Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, as an alternate, yeah.
As an alternate. Do I have anybody else interested in these positions? Okay. So the consensus is yes. Okay. We like it. All right, moving on. Humboldt Waste Management Authority, HWMA. HWMA is a joint powers authority made up of the following municipalities: Arcata, Blue Lake, Eureka, Ferndale, Rio Dell, and Humboldt County. Currently, we have Councilmember Castellano, and we are looking for an alternate. And it looks like Councilmember Contreras-Deloche is interested in that. Okay. Is anyone else interested in that position as the alternate? Sold. Wonderful. Okay. Moving on. Redwood Coast Energy Authority. We have Councilmember Bauer, and we are looking for an alternate. And it looks like we have Councilmember Contreras-Deloche is interested in that as well. Is anybody else interested in being the alternate? Okay. This is going so smoothly. It's wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Contreras-Deloche. I'm practicing. All right, Redwood Region Economic Development Board, REDEC. has 19 members and is governed by a board of directors appointed by member agencies from their respective governing boards. The board elects an executive committee to approve loans and act on other business as directed by the board of directors. And it looks like we have Councilmember Contreras-Deloche as the lead, and Councilmember Fernandez is the alternate. Is there anybody else that might be interested in these positions? Wonderful. Thank you for your service. City of Eureka Personnel Board. Meets as needed. Eureka City Hall, the council shall appoint one of its members to act as a liaison representative to the Personnel Board. Such liaison representative shall attend the meetings of the Personnel Board, advise the council of the background attitudes and reasoning behind decisions and recommendations of the Personnel Board, and on the request of any member of the Personnel Board, advise the Board of their policies, procedures, and decisions of the council, which may bear on matters under discussion by the Personnel Board. The council liaison representative shall be without power to vote. And it looks like we've got Councilmember Moulton.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like a seat on that board.
Wonderful. And Councilmember Bauer, you'll remain the alternate?
Sure.
Is anybody else interested? Okay. Sequoia Park Zoo Foundation. Kim Vergel, that would be me, as the lead. I can stay on that board, yes. Yay! So excited. I had to fight Marion for that for years. Okay.
Happy to step down as alternate.
Okay. And Councilmember Contreras-Deloche, you're interested in being the alternate? Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Eureka Main Street Board. Councilmember Castellano, you are the lead, and I was the alternate, and it looks like Councilmember Contreras-Deloche would like to be the alternate.
Like we're hearing my name a lot.
I'm practicing. I remember it. So yes. So anybody else interested? No. Great. Thank you. Humboldt Bay Municipal Water Services District Task Force meets as needed, and right now we have no takers. So, is anybody interested in this position? Oh, Councilmember Fernandez, thank you.
I'll pick up the alternate seat on that if you need one, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Moulton. And Councilmember Moulton is the alternate. All right. Humboldt County City of Eureka Working Group. 2 members of the County of Humboldt Board of Supervisors and Eureka City Council meet with staff to discuss issues relating to both agencies. Every single one of us is interested, but the mayor can't be on that commission, can I? Yeah, okay. I was before, that's why I was asking. Okay, it's a great opportunity. I learned a lot there. So everybody's interested, so how do you propose we move forward?
I'm willing to step off of that.
Okay.
If people are willing to let me be on the school board 2x2.
Okay, well, we don't know that yet. We've got a whole group here.
I'm also willing to step back from that.
You're wanting to step back? So
I
we've
can,
got Councilmember
Just to give you 3.
Castellano, Councilmember Contreras-Deloche, and Councilmember Bauer. And we need one person and an alternate, and potentially Councilmember Fernandez. We're not sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're on the City of Eureka, the working group. That you need 2
the
people
city
in a
county
row.
meeting. We need 2 people. You're right. So that would be 1, 2, 3. There's 3 of you.
So who's the alternate?
So who would like to be the alternate? We got a coin here.
I think you need a 3-sided coin, Mayor.
Well, we can flip and flip, right? We're gonna have to Rochambeau for this one. All right.
I can do it on the screen though.
Throw a 2 or a 1.
What's that, hon?
You could
I
do
mean,
Rochambeau where you just throw a 2 or a 1 and odd man's out. Mayor does not have say. As much clout as the mayor has, she doesn't have say in this.
Yeah, it's not under my authority to choose.
What we could do is we could pick a number between 1 and 10.
Okay.
Or 1 and 20, and then the person that gets the closest to that number is the alternate.
Okay. So you want me to pick a number?
Yes.
Now?
Between 1 and 20. Whoever is closest is the alternate. The other 2 goes on. So you want to be away from the number I should be a game show host. That's pretty good, huh?
All right. I have the number, the magic number.
Go ahead.
So, Councilmember Castellano, what you got?
Oh, gosh.
Between 1 and 20.
5.
Okay, that's Castellano. Contreras Deloach.
Can I do 20? Even though it's not between 1 and 20?
So 20. Okay. And Councilmember Bauer.
1.
Oh, that makes it difficult. That makes it very difficult because the number is 3.
Oh no! Now you Rochambeau.
Now you can flip a coin.
No, wait. So council member.
Scott and Leslie are on Renee's was the farthest.
No, it was the one that was closest.
Whoever's closest is the alternate.
So Scott.
If I'd have known the numbers were coming out, I would have switched it around.
So Scott was 1. So that's 1, 2, 3. So that's 2. And oh my goodness, it's now we're gonna do a coin toss, I guess, huh?
Yep.
All
And
right.
keeping consistent, whoever wins is the alternate.
What? Yeah, whoever.
Just joking on you.
Oh my gosh. Who knew we could have so much fun on a Tuesday night? No, the number was 3.
Oh.
So you were like, you're in it to win it. Okay. So who's calling it?
Leslie.
Councilmember Castellano, call it while it's in the air.
Tails.
And it is
Heads.
heads.
All right, so Tails isn't taking it tonight. Got it.
So our alternate, Leslie is the alternate. Okay.
Sorry, Leslie.
Thank you for your willingness, all of you. Okay, so that's Renee and Scott. Eureka City Schools 2x2 City of Eureka Working Group. 2 members from the Eureka City School Board. That was a faux pas. And Eureka City Council meet with staff to discuss issues relating to both agencies. We have Councilmember Moulton is already on. So we're looking for one more person on and an alternate. So we have Councilmember Bauer, Councilmember Contreras Deloach, and Councilmember Fernandez all interested for the 2 positions. One actual? Cross you off. So would you be willing to be, okay. Oh yeah, that makes it easier. Okay. So now we have Councilmember Bauer and Councilmember Fernandez.
Would you be willing to be the alternate? Okay, thank you.
You'll be the alternate? Yeah, he was gracious. Okay. Okay. Thank you. League of California Cities Rapid Empire Division Legislative Committee meets quarterly in rotating cities, and we currently have, and you guys are still, we're not voting on that, right? It's currently Councilmember Bauer and Castellano?
Correct. I believe Councilmember Castellano, are you in line to serve on that Redwood Empire Division? Yeah, on the board. And then Councilmember Bauer is on the League of California Cities boards, and they've taken the lead on that. So I think they're there
They're
to
going to keep
stay.
them. Great. Thank you
But
for that.
everyone can attend these quarterly meetings.
Sure.
These council members just would represent in any type of vote.
I appreciate them. Okay. League of Cities, Redwood Empire Division Coastal Cities Committee. So currently we have Councilmember Castellano, and then we have Councilmember Fernandez as the alternate. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else interested in that? Being the alternate for the Coastal Cities Committee? Congratulations, Councilmember Fernandez. We've got the delegate meeting, and that is Councilmember Bauer and Castellano, and those 2 will be staying and retaining there.
I'm happy to. I'm on the board of directors. So
Okay.
I'm happy to free that up for somebody if they're interested.
Okay, so League of California Cities Redwood Empire Division Business Delegate. So is anybody interested in that? And that entails travel, am I right or no?
Yeah, occasionally.
Occasionally?
Yeah, it's not far.
Okay. So is anyone interested in taking Councilmember Bauer's position?
If not, I'll stay on. I don't care.
What is this one?
So,
I mean, wait, yeah, I guess I'm just curious.
Councilmember Bauer, if you'd explain that? Or Councilmember Castellano, either one. Go ahead, Councilmember Castellano.
Scott, if you want.
I think she said you could explain it, Councilmember Bauer.
Councilmember Bauer, sorry.
So, California cities, we represent, all the cities in the state, and Redwood Empire Division is essentially from the Del Norte border to Point Arena, right? Roughly all those cities within that. And so, what was that? Coastal. Yeah, it goes into like Lakeport or, and so, we advocate for our cities. Essentially, what our needs are versus we're wildly different than the bigger cities. And so it's a good thing just to get experience with what's going on across the state. It's pretty interesting.
Great. Okay. So Councilmember Contreras-Deloche will be the lead. And then Councilmember Castellano, did you want to remain the alternate?
Yeah, I'm still pretty involved with the league, so I'd like to stay involved.
Thank you. Okay. So Eureka Chamber of Commerce ad hoc liaisons. You guys meet as needed. We've got Councilmember Fernandez, Councilmember Moulton, and Councilmember Contreras-Deloche. And Councilmember Moulton, are you currently one of the?
I am currently one of the liaisons for this, yes.
Okay.
I'm happy to step back and give the others a chance, although I've enjoyed working with the chamber.
Okay.
If council members Fernandez and Contreras-Deloche want to take these two seats.
I'm okay either way. I feel like I didn't think, I just checked all the ones that I was interested in.
Okay.
Not realizing that I was just going to, be gathering them. So
You're going to be very busy.
Yeah. So I'm okay on the ones where there's like three of us with me just stepping back on that.
Okay, so Councilmember Moulton.
I'm happy to stay on that committee.
Okay, so we've got Councilmember Moulton and Councilmember Fernandez, and we don't need an alternate on that?
We should, so if I can use Renee on that. Yeah.
Okay. Great. And then we have the Humboldt Bay Harbor District, City of Eureka Working Group. 2 members from the Humboldt Harbor District and Eureka City Council meet with staff to discuss issues relating to both agencies. Councilmember Castellano, I saw you. So you're interested in that?
Yeah.
Yes. So we've got Councilmember Castellano, Councilmember Fernandez, and Councilmember Contreras-Deloche. So we do need 2 people and an alternate.
I'm happy to be an alternate.
Okay, so everybody's good with that? Okay, so Councilmember Castellano and Councilmember Fernandez will be the leads, and then Contreras-Deloche will be the alternate. Are we done? Great job. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being willing to take these commitments and be of service. That being said, we're going to move on to future agenda items. This is an opportunity for council members request an item to be placed on a future agenda or discussion or consideration. Direction to staff for placement of the item must be by a majority consensus. Does somebody have any future agenda items? Councilmember Castellano?
I would like sanctioned camping as maybe not in February, but in March as a future agenda item. Even if it's just to get other council members all aware of sort of what's been done, what has been considered, what could be done. I feel like it's talked about a lot, but isn't discussed.
So would you like that in a type of report, are you thinking?
I think a report, and then council could ask for it to come back as an action item if needed.
Great.
Could we potentially do that in February then?
Well,
I know the request was for March, that's why I asked.
So Councilmember Fernandez was curious if that could be moved to February. City Manager Slattery, what are your thoughts on that? If we vote, I mean, we still need the consensus, but
I don't think it's a problem. I mean, at least the second meeting,
okay.
We could get it in February. I do want to remind council that for the participatory budgeting, there was a workshop that's going to be held related to this as well. So I don't know if there's a thought, because it seems to me that what Councilmember Castellano is looking at is more of where we have been, where we're at now, and what would it take to move it forward. And that was kind of the thought process for that workshop. So, I mean, we can do it as a part of the council report in February. It wouldn't be a problem. It's going to be a lot of discussion and contemplation, because there's a lot of intricacies that are involved with this based on where we've been in the past and what's allowable currently. So we can bring it forward then. I just am wondering what that workshop looks like if we do this now.
So I'm curious, maybe we could do an abridged version for council to be a bit more up to speed before we do a town hall or an educational. Is that what you had in mind, Councilmember Castellano?
Yeah.
No, that's not a problem.
Okay. So is anybody interested in that? We got some thumbs? We got lots of thumbs ups here. So second meeting in February is what we're looking at. Oh, Councilmember Moulton.
An additional future agenda item, I would like to review the process of design review. I'm very familiar with it from the ground up, but I'm interested in a report on what aspects of design review are set and controlled by council in an interest of protecting the integrity of our town's aesthetic by not diluting it with copies, which seems to be something design review is doing right now, and also streamlining the process towards more affordable housing in the city. I'm interested in a report on the design review, what they do, what they cover, what they don't cover, and what we can change about what they cover.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
That was literally what I was going to ask for as well.
Oh,
so
good. Well,
I was on the same page. I wanted to talk about the design review committee.
Well, there's maybe 2 thumbs up. So anybody else have any comments, or are we just going to give some thumbs up? Thumbs up. Great. Okay. So you have everything you need, City Manager Slattery? Do you have everything you need?
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. That one, I'll talk to planning staff and see when we can bring that forward, but it shouldn't take too long. I know that our February 7th meeting is pretty packed, so it would likely be at a minimum the second meeting in February, if not the first meeting in March.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you. And we will move forward now to our city manager reports. City Manager Slattery and Director Millar.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. Before we get to Director Millar's finance report, I want to commend Assistant City Manager Pam Powell and finance accountant technician Suzanne and our social media specialist Cozy for the work that they've done on the
Cozy Hunter.
Cozy Hunter, my apologies, Cozy. Excuse me, Hunter. But they worked very long and hard on this and made sure that it was very unique to the city of Eureka. And it is going to be going live after many different renditions were supposed to go live, but we are finally going live tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And we'll have a brand new website that's very user-friendly and very functional comparative to our previous website. So I wanted to thank staff for putting that on. Then we have Director Millar is here to give a review of our report from the fiscal year 21-22 and go over the calendar for fiscal year 23-24.
All right, good evening. So as Miles said, this presentation or report has two sections. The first section is the fiscal year 23-24 budget calendar, and the second part is a review of fiscal year 21-22. In the first section, we'll go over the mid-year review, the budget introduction, the budget study session, and the budget adoption. And then looking at the general fund, we will look at revenues, expenditures, fund balance, and transfers. So to begin with the calendar, so every year we, as a city, do a process that is very similar to the one on the screen. Typically, we start in the current fiscal year with a mid-year review. I anticipate that will happen at the second meeting in February. The purpose of the mid-year is for the departments to review their budget and to adjust for any budget variances. It's also a time when new budget items can be proposed. Any unused monies are removed or repurposed, and if necessary, we update the fee schedule. After the mid-year review, what happens is really not something that's public, but what happens in City Hall or in offices is everybody takes out their pencil and goes over their budget. This is usually a multi-month process. We do things like determine what our needs will be in the following fiscal year. We also take historical budget data and look at our spending from a behavioral stance. Typically, we are very predictable when it comes to certain items. We then meet, or departments will meet with finance, HR, and the city manager, typically to discuss personnel changes or any major purchasing or purchases. And then after we complete that, I take that data and the finance department puts together the budget document. Once the budget document is produced, it gets introduced to City Council. So usually this is in the form of a report. There's no action taken. The budget is uploaded to the city's website under the name the proposed budget. And I typically do a kind of a big picture summary of the budget. Following the introduction, we typically have a study session. So a study session is usually a special meeting of the City Council. This is where we do an in-depth review of the budget, and all departments are present so that if you have questions about any one department or division's budget, you will have personnel to speak to. And then finally, we have the budget adoption, which I hope to complete at the first meeting in June. This is where we actually take action through a public hearing. This is where we adopt the final version of the budget. During this process, I do plan to update a couple policies. The first one being the reserve policy. And then on top of that, introducing or amending a expenditure policy, typically aimed at facilities and street spending. And then one last thing, we've recently adopted a new budget tool through the vendor ClearGov. They provide essentially a digital version of the budget. It'll be hosted on the city's website. We'll still have the physical document, but you'll be able to kind of use both. On the website, if you want to print the budget out, you simply press a button, it produces a PDF. And then on top of that, it is an interactive tool, so you can actually look at a department and their budget and those big numbers and click in and kind of get more detail about the budget. So the next section is the look back at fiscal year 21-22. So before I begin showing you financial schedules, I'm displaying the revenues in parentheses. Technically, those are negative numbers, but in this case, it represents money coming in or income, as well as savings. And then expenditures are displayed as regular dollar figures. So to begin, we're looking at revenues by type. In this column, we have the budget, and then we have the total activity for the fiscal year, and then the budget variance, displayed as a dollar figure and a percentage. And again, so that negative 1.7 million is a good thing. That means that our revenues came above what we anticipated in the budget. We did have some variances that I want to point out. In charges for services, we came in 30% above the budget, and that was due to the performance of the zoo. Zoo admissions came in about $400,000 more than I was willing to budget at the time, so that was good news. And then in this category, miscellaneous, we were way above budget. This is a category that is used for one-time items or things that we don't anticipate. We sold what was formerly the Chamber property on Broadway, just under $400,000. So that's what pushed this number up so high. Now we have expenditures by type. If you look right here, you will see another negative number, but that's a good thing. That means we had a very small amount of budget savings. We did have some variances. First, in the outside services, we went over budget, and that was because at the beginning of the fiscal year, we thought we would tap into reserves held by the Humboldt Bay Fire JPA. And because we did so well in this fiscal year, we decided that we would forego that plan and to fully fund them. So that's why we went over in that line item by roughly $350,000. And then in this category, projects, this really has to do with some grants we have. Projects are typically hard to budget for because spending can be all over the map. Sometimes we spend it all at once, and sometimes it takes years to get through a grant. And then in this category, transfers, this was a big budget item in total. What this represents was our ability, or we essentially paid off a lot of funds outside the general fund that were in negative cash positions. And I will get into more detail later on in the presentation. So ultimately, we anticipated about a $500,000 surplus, but the actual showed a much bigger surplus of about $2.3 million, which is great news. How did that affect the fund balance or the reserve? Well, here is a chart showing us a little bit of history of our fund balance in those two columns. So you can see we grew our fund balance by that $2.3 million surplus. We're just under $10 million. Unfortunately, because we measure reserves or fund balance based on our total expenditures, our fund balance grew, but our expenditures grew even more. So we actually went down in fund balance based on days of operating budget. We didn't go down a lot, but if I display that information in a bar graph, you can see that in 1819 we were in a good spot, and then 1920 hit. That was the pandemic. We utilized a large portion of our reserves. That following year, we built those back up, and then in fiscal year 21-22, we lost a few days of reserve. Historically, our threshold or benchmark has been 60 days. So we're above our benchmark, but I will come back to you in the future to determine if we want to raise or lower that bar based on what we think what the future will hold. And here we're going to talk about transfers. So that was that big budget item at the bottom. So at the beginning of the fiscal year, these 5 funds had a negative cash balance of over $7.3 million. This didn't happen overnight. This was years and years of just letting these balances grow. And then Measure H came along, and we had also cut the general fund in 2021 by 14%. So the combination of those events essentially led to a huge surplus or anticipated surplus in fiscal year 21-22. So we decided the best use of that cash was to pay off these debts because, now was the time. So as you can see, we committed about $5.7 million to these funds. And at the end of the fiscal year, we were left with a very small portion of that deficit. The only negative cash balance is now in the Harbor Fund. And the Harbor Fund is pending a sale of a piece of property that should cover the remainder of that cash balance. So good news. The remainder of the transfers actually went towards infrastructure. So in fiscal year 21-22, we dedicated about $1.3 million to street projects and about $500,000 to facilities. And then in fiscal year 22-23, which we consider the baseline now, we've committed about $2.5 million for streets and $1 million for facilities. That concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Director Millar? Councilmember Bauer?
Do facilities include, like when we redo a street and we have to do sewer pipelines and valves, is that considered facilities or that's considered part of streets?
Well, Public Works Director Gerving can expand, but what we're doing now is when we rip up a street and we expose utilities, the wastewater fund will come in and do a project.
Okay.
So that street money is being used almost solely for just to cover the streets. Facility monies is meant to be put back into City Hall or EPD headquarters.
Okay, thank you.
Parks as well.
Okay, Councilmember Moulton?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say yay to ClearGov, an interactive tool that makes the budget accessible to the public. This is a tome. It's quite a document once you, if you don't have a head for it. But being able to dig into all those charts and graphs and having the public really be able to understand the nuances of the situation, I think is incredibly valuable. Yay, accessibility. And also, I just want to say that I'm really happy that we chose to cut down debt. And I remember Councilmember Arroyo cautioning us overspending, and like maybe this wave we're on isn't going to continue too far into the future. And I see that in the way that things are being handled, that we are, taking care of business and planning for the future with this surplus, but not going nuts. And I'd like to continue to, do that and take care of what we need to do, but not overreach ourselves in the face of uncertain the future. Thanks. Good job. Thank you.
I can't see you, Councilmember Castellano. Did you have any questions? There you are.
Thanks. It's just a quick one. I know that our strategic visioning kind of plays into our budget calendar, but we didn't talk about it tonight. Are we anticipating that to be, I know we haven't set the dates for it, but we're looking at sort of sometime in May in terms of leading up to budget adoption in June, or do you think earlier than that?
it'll likely be in March, late March, early April, potentially. We're looking into that right now. We've been discussing it in department head to determine a path forward, and we'll come back to council with timing and what the process will look like. Maybe second meeting in February, but we'll have it to you guys soon.
Great. It'd be great if we could start at least like tossing those dates around sooner than later, just because we're all on, just so we can get them on our own calendars too.
Yeah, and if we need to push it out till end of March, that's not going to be a problem either. Or even into April, it shouldn't be a problem.
And then, shoot, I forgot my other question. I'll wait.
Great. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Thank you, Director Millar, for that report. Oh, Councilmember Castellano.
I forgot. I remembered. I know that pension liability is kind of a big one, and we didn't go into it tonight. Is that something that you'll bring forward in a future meeting, Director Millar?
Yeah, it's a topic that I will bring up during the budget process. Given the interest rate environment right now, there's pension bonds are off the table, but there are other strategies we can consider. So I'll bring those forward during the fiscal year 23-24 process.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Thank you again, Director Millar. All right, so we have 14 minutes before we need to extend the meeting. So let's try and get through our council reports before that extension, if we possibly can. Let's start with Councilmember Moulton. I just started with you.
I don't have any city-related travel to report, although I did do some traveling. I had to take an emergency trip back to my hometown of Houston, Texas. And I just wanted to speak on something briefly that strikes me every time I go back to Texas, where the car absolutely rules. If you wanted to bike or walk somewhere in Houston, you kind of can't. Or at least in a lot of the outlying areas where I was, where my family is, you can't walk or bike to the grocery store. It's not only not structurally possible, it's simply not friendly. And as we push Eureka to be a more multimodal, friendly walking and biking kind of community, I just am so grateful that it is already pretty good. It's not great. It's definitely a lot of improvements that can be made as far as getting around safely, but there's certain places where it's just totally not possible, and I don't want us to be that ever. I want people to be able to get around, and happy we're doing that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Castellano.
Sure. Just a couple things. I am out of town right now, but I am continuing to host a weekly housing working group, and I attended the Eureka Police Department promotional ceremony, and that was really moving. And yeah, thanks and just appreciation to everyone who's been working so hard within the police department. And I attended the Eureka Main Street strategic visioning session. And, I know that there's too many things that it makes sense to convey in a council report, but I know that Eureka Main Street is definitely the people who are participating there really want to, express and report more to the city council. So I think they're figuring out how to do that in a way that makes sense for them.
Thank you. Councilmember Fernandez.
Yeah, I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, I just want to mention I plan on having a Cooper Gulch cleanup day in March, so I'm working with city staff to get something scheduled. And stay tuned. I'll probably be mid-March and hope people will come. I did have a Cal Cities Policy Committee meeting, and that's kind of to get ready for legislative year and policies that revolve around Cal Cities, and have a bunch of meetings coming up as legislation comes out that affects the city. We'll be traveling and all that. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Contreras Deloach.
Yeah, I got to attend the Eureka Police, their promotion ceremony, and that was, saw you guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really nice. That was really lovely, and got to speak with a few different people and just really appreciate their service. And then I went and visited some downtown businesses and just spoke to some of our business owners down there and just kind of asked them about some of the things that they're concerned about or wanting to see. So just kind of, I try to go shopping down there a lot anyway, doing my part, spending money. But so it was nice just to kind of go down there and be visiting with everybody. And I need to kind of get into that in a more traditional or more official format. And then just really going over all of our agenda items this week and making sure that I read and looked at every little thing so we knew exactly what we were going over, and doing some research because we had kind of some heavy items to really discuss. So that's it.
Thank you. Well, we did it, you guys. I do want to just add one more thing, because there's always one more thing. So just, tonight we talked about the Transportation Safety Commission came and did their report, and that was wonderful. We are looking for volunteers for our commissions. So currently we are looking for 2 people for Board of Appeals. We're looking for 2 people for the Citizens Oversight Board on Police Practices. That's always a fun topic. Lots of people interested in that one. Economic Development Commission, we need glasses. 1. We think it might be 1. It's moving. Art and Culture Commission, we need 1 person. Historic Preservation, we need 1. Open Space and Recreation Commission, we're looking for 1 person. And then the Transportation Safety Commission is looking for 2 people. That's a really fun commitment. And then the Personnel Board is also looking for volunteers. So, it's always great to pick up an oar and be part of our community. We're all in this together, and we could all use the support that we need to make our city a better place. So look it up. And thanks so much, everybody that stuck around and for being here. We appreciate you. And this is Kim Vergel, and we're out, but we're out. Boom.